It's Marvel
Alright,
time, baby. You ready?
Marvel movies. Yeah.
Let's do it. So,
Yeah.
so there are. We're gonna kind of go in order here for phase one,
Okay. Okay.
and then once we're done with these, okay. So before going into any of these, beforehand, what was your thoughts about phase one and maybe the MCU in general before seeing the phase one movies?
My thoughts. My thoughts on the MCU before rewatching the Phase One movies.
Yeah.
Um. Well, not good. um. I stopped watching Marvel after Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Not that Guardians was bad. It was actually pretty good, but I just got tired of Marvel. I got tired of feeling like I was watching the same movie over and over and over and over and over again. Um, and like the rabid fans bitching at me about how you don't like how could you not like Marvel movies made me not like it even more. Um, I decided to watch Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War for some weird reason, and I liked those, but I didn't understand like half of what was going on because I hadn't watched any Marvel shit in a long time. So like, when did Hulk get put on the trash planet? So then I decided to start from the beginning, go through phase one. Um, phase one, it's not bad. it's I don't know. It gets the job done, is what I would say. A lot of the movies, while not as like cookie cutter or Disneyified, as like the other phases, I feel are. Um, they definitely feel like kind of that like mid to late 2000s superhero movie kind of thing. It definitely feels like these were movies made at around the same time as Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, and like shit like that. Um, in terms of like production value and like how they're telling their stories. Um, but for the most part, they're not bad. That's my overall uh, summary of them. They
Yeah.
are okay.
Okay. So when I was first going into phase one and like the Marvel stuff in general, I didn't wasn't really excited about it. It's been a long time since I've seen some of these movies, and for the most part, I'd still say overall, before going into these, I didn't have a high perception because like this is like the origin story of a lot of these superheroes, and origin stories usually aren't that good. So, especially when it comes to the superhero genre, because how many times they've been done. So, I really wasn't going forward into this liking it or like thinking that it would be good. I knew that Thor already, from what I heard, was kind of underrated. I heard, but I didn't know why. Iron Man 1 was obviously good. Iron Man 2 is not good. Captain America First Avenger is fine. Um, and Avengers is it's still a decent movie, but I have my issues with it in terms of like how it is with like the Avengers and how it fits to the greater MCU. But enough about that. Let's start off with the number one that everybody talks about, the whole thing that started this cinematic universe to begin with, Iron Man 1. What'd you think?
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about the Incredible Hulk. Um,
No,
but
that's after Iron Man 1.
oh, okay. Well, I liked Iron Man 1. I saw it a long ass time ago, and I remember being kind of bored with it when I was younger. But I liked. I thought it was good. Again, fucking John Favreau is doing a good job. Only he would do a good job on The Lion King, but we'll never forgive John for that. But he directed it very well. He was not annoying as his little side character. I liked. I like Robert Downey Jr. He was good as the character. He's actually charismatic and can make the kind of mortal humor work. Um, I there again, it definitely felt dated. That was one thing that I was that I was thinking of was like the fucking AC/DC playing and the opening and the, like all the military shit. I was like, oh, this was definitely made in like 2006.
Oh
But
yeah, it's yeah. That's one of my criticisms with this film, is that
mm,
nobody really bat an eye the fact that this was definitely made in the early 2000s. Like it
yeah,
was pretty clear by that, with like you said, with the ACDC and just like the general look of the film in general not being more or less
yep,
like film looking. That's until like later, after the Avengers, after
right,
like people actually started complaining. But it's like Iron Man 1 definitely has a distinct look, and I like its look. There's nothing wrong against its look, but it just doesn't look quote unquote film like, and that's why Martin Scorsese can say it's not real superhero cinema, which I don't even know what he means by that. I think he's just bullshitting, but whatever. Um,
well, first of all, Martin Scorsese is a very old man, and he like the movies that he likes to make are like gangster movies based on like obscure books or like shit like that. So he's not in the audience for superhero stuff at all. So I like and to a degree, I think that Martin Scorsese's criticisms are valid, but that's because Marvel is like the fucking McDonald's of movies. Right. Yeah. So it's what it is. It's a movie really carried by I think two performances. I think it's Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges who kind of carry this movie because like if it wasn't that like you liked watching Tony Stark, well, yeah, if it wasn't that you liked watching Tony Stark, I think this movie would suck because like when you think about it, like in terms of the grand scheme of Marvel stuff, like he barely does anything. He like blows up some terrorists, and then he beats up Jeff Bridges, and then that's the movie. And
I rather that for a change than fight space demon thing. Oh yeah.
um, that's true. It is nice that it waited a little bit to do the lasers in the sky, but I do think it's very much a performance movie, and I also think that it's not because Jon Favreau is good at directing actors. I think he has to rely on the actor's existing charisma to do the work. Because I've seen how he like talks to actors, and it's like okay, so in The Lion King, he was talking to the kid who was playing young Simba, and he was trying to get him to emote in the scene. He was trying to like get him in the right headspace for that. He was like, so like you're on a really high like little cliff area, and you're looking down, and like the wind's blowing and stuff, and you're like really scared. And it was like he's literally just describing like what is happening in the scene to him, and it's like how the fuck is that supposed to make him know like how to emote and express in this scene? And of course, you can tell that like the kid is not registering any of this. So he's just like sound like I'm scared, you know. So I think it's very very reliant on the actor's charisma that sells it. Also, Jarvis, fucking Vision, is the computer man, and I did not remember that.
You
That's
didn't?
weird.
That's pretty important.
Look, I didn't watch Age of Ultron. Okay, I know
As
that
you
was where
shouldn't.
Vision happened, but
It's not
yeah,
very good. It's like,
uh,
it's a yikeser.
I've I've never heard anything good about that movie ever.
No. There's like one guy on Twitter that said, "Can we stop pretending we hate Age of Ultron?" And then he immediately got fucking ratioed.
Oh
So
yeah, get wrecked. But yeah, so yeah, good. I would call it like a 7.5 out of 10.
yeah, it's decent. It's certainly like not the quote unquote best Marvel movie, but it is like the most one that can be used or reused for formulas essentially, and that's what happened later down the road anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately, with Black Panther, and Doctor Strange being the key
Black
ones.
power. Oh, that's hilarious.
This is a reminder.
Alexa,
Let
shush, stop. Alexa, stop.
I want to know what the reminder is now.
Probably to let the dog out, what they usually are.
Huh, weird.
But-
Anyway, but yeah, like you were saying, Iron Man 1 is essentially just a performance film. It's not really about a lot about... Okay, well, here's my thing about Iron Man 1 is that I think that it's better than the rest of the Marvel movies, not necessarily because it's too different, because obviously it would be copied later down the road. It's mostly because of like how well people like Tony Stark. And it's not just like the actor is good, but I think there's like a lot of character. Like right off the bat, we're given so much character and detail to Iron Man that makes his character kind of work with the film. And that too, combine that with like the fast and tight pace of this movie, which by the way, this movie is like paced really well. It's like really fitting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is paced pretty well. And you are right that like it helps, and we'll talk about this more with Captain America, I'm sure. But it helps that like Iron Man has a lot to work with as far as like a character. Like, for instance, you can say that he had an arc in this movie. It's the same arc that he has in Iron Man 2 and 3, but let's not talk about that yet. But like,
oh boy, Iron Man 2. Dude, you don't even know the half of it.
I barely remember it, and the shit that I do remember makes me really never want to watch that movie ever again. But like, you know, he has an arc. He has flaws. He has, you know, things that he wants. He has goals. You know, like all of the shit that you need to make a good character. And then on top of that, I think, like, you have like that good groundwork. But I think that the thing that elevated it and sold it was the performance by Robert Downey Jr. I think that was kind of the like extra thing that it needed to like really make people give a fuck about Iron Man, because when that movie came out, I was like, man, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, huh? Making an Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man was like the like fucking D tier character.
Yeah, dude, everybody loved Iron Man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, everybody loves Iron Man. So I know, like nobody fucking gave a shit until the MCU.
Yeah, sadly that's... Like, nobody cared about, what's his fucking face? The Guardians of the Galaxy till the movie came out.
Right. Well, it's the Deadpool effect, where like it comes out and it's popular, so then everybody's been a fan of it the whole time.
That's how it works.
I was like, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
But yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to talk about with Iron Man?
I think there's actually not a lot to say about... Oh, but there is something that I did want to mention. In one of the scenes, my dad has the, you know, of course he has all the Marvel films. And this also came with the bonus edition too. And this bonus edition kind of tells us a few scenes that were essentially missing. A lot of them aren't relevant, and I can see why they were cut, but there's one in particular that I kind of want to mention that's actually pretty interesting. I want to see what your take on it is. There's a deleted scene where right after Iron Man takes care of the planes, right? Where he, like, destroys them, essentially, and he, like, goes through them, and, like, you remember that?
Right. Like when he like goes to like the village.
Yeah, it's when he's taking care of the pilots, where, like, the pilots, like, zoom over him.
Oh, right. Right.
Okay, so in the main film, it's never really addressed when Tony and, whatever black guy, I forget his face. Oh, Rhodey. When
Don
Rhodey...
Cheadle.
Sorry, Don Cheadle. Sorry. Fucking Don Cheadle. Captain Planet. I'll turn you into a fucking tree. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
but essentially, with this scene, the movie doesn't have any point where they kind of bring that up, but there is a deleted scene where Tony talks about this. And let me just say, this scene does not make Tony look good, because essentially, like, Tony starts like lashing out at Rhodey, and he's like, well, they shouldn't have been there in the first place. They shouldn't have stopped me. They got what they deserve. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, calm down there. And it was like a complete and utter 180, and it seemed like a completely different Tony Stark. And I thought this was interesting because I think this would, number one, foreshadow what he kind of become in Civil War, and later on of him kind of becoming a darker character in some ways. But this also shows that with this one scene, I think they could have fundamentally ruined the film, because, like I said, a lot of this film is built on the back of Iron Man as a character, whether it be through his performance or his arc, and this scene would have probably like ruined his character. So
That,
I'm
yeah,
glad they deleted it.
that does sound very like like out of character for him at the time, right? Because his arc is that like his arc is being a like playboy like asshole who has to learn how to give a fuck about somebody other than himself, not like about anything about like dispensing justice or shit like that. So I think that it's good that they got rid of that scene, because I think that would definitely have clashed with the rest of it. And it would kind of just make him look like just an asshole.
Yeah,
Which again, since it's a character-based movie, would just like wreck it.
yeah. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to mention that because I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was worth bringing up for the conversation's sake, also
Yeah.
for the movie as a whole. But next up,
Right.
is that all
Also,
you have to
remember,
say about Iron Man?
yeah, I got one more thing. Every time you see Gwyneth Paltrow in any Marvel movie, just remember that you can buy a candle that smells like
No,
her
no,
vagina.
I thought you were gonna. No, I thought you were gonna mention that.
Just that's all. I just want to put that out there. Just letting everybody know.
Thank you, James. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what's the next one? What's the next Marvel movie?
The next Marvel movie in this list here is, of course, The Incredible Hulk, which I didn't watch
Oh
this
my god.
film, but you did, and in fact, you have a lot to say about it. So I'm all ears.
Well, it's mainly that I have a lot to say about the Hulk, like just overall as a character, and this is probably like what I want to talk about. Honestly, extends beyond Phase One, but it is kind of pertinent with the Edward Norton Hulk movie as well. But like, what I find really strange and like I don't know if I am disappointed by it, because I feel like it's and like I get why, but like I feel like there's a very big disconnect between how the Hulk is portrayed in the MCU and in movies and like general media, as opposed to like what the character is. Um, because like so what I think the issue is that Hulk has like the perfect action figure design. Like that is the perfect look for like angry little boy who wants to like smash his action figures together. Of course you get him a fucking Incredible Hulk, because like that is like that design for that character and his power set and everything is completely like great for that. But the problem, and the movies want to capitalize on that, and like Disney doesn't want to do anything too crazy or serious or dark with Marvel, so of course like Hulk is just like run around punch things, you know? And it's weird because, and I was thinking about this in relation to the pre-MCU Hulk movie that came out in 2003 and the new run of Hulk comics, The Immortal Hulk. And what I thought was interesting about that is that it treated the Hulk story as like a psychological thriller and almost like a horror story, which is odd. I think oddly fitting for the Hulk, because the original concept was like based on Frankenstein and based on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and like classical horror archetypes, and then just like repackaging those archetypes for like a post-nuclear world, you know? And like the thing with the Hulk is that like in the very early books, I think it was, I'm not like a Hulk historian, so I'm sure I'm going to get some of this wrong. But like, I think in some of the early books, it was like he freaks out and then like punches stuff and then blah, right? Like he like basically just throws a big fit and then he calms down. He's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." Um, but the like in the later comics and in especially in the 2003 movie, it was treated as if the Hulk was a second. Like basically, they treated it as Bruce Banner having like multiple personality disorder, and that like the Hulk personality was like like in danger of completely overtaking Bruce Banner, and on top of that, that like it was a personality that emerged from being a survivor of like physical abuse as a kid, right? And so because of all of his trauma as a child, because of all of this, built up, anger inside of him, it wasn't just later, like they recontextualized it, so that it wasn't just that gamma bomb go boom, now he's the Hulk. It was like in a way preyed upon his own emotional instability, and kind of unleashed like this kind of like shadow side, I guess, to use a Jungian psychology here. But and that to me makes the Hulk way more interesting than if he was just get angry and like throw a fit. You know, I think it adds a lot more layers to that character and allows for more interesting stories. Because if anything, if we're wanting to talk about movies that feel dated, the 2003 Hulk movie feels dated as all fuck. It has Comic Sans as a font in it. It's got like these like Windows Movie Maker looking ass transitions. It's like woof. Like it is a movie from the early 2000s, let me tell you. And like some of the dialogue is really really like awkward, like really like crammed in exposition. Where you're just like, when would that come up in a regular conversation? So it's not a perfect movie by any means. But what I really liked about it was that it took that concept of Bruce Banner's dad and like the abuse and making Bruce Banner's dad the villain and kind of him having to reconfront all of these traumas and like repressed memories and shit. And the fact that it was treating it like a mystery, like it wasn't immediately obvious, like he did, because like again he like suppressed all of these memories from being a child, so it's it's a slow kind of unpacking, of like, so why does he keep thinking about this? Why does he keep having like weird reactions to this thing or dreams about this or that? And then, eventually, we kind of piece it together like, oh, his dad tried to kill him. Cool. So, it's, and then also what I will say is that as much as weird and cheesy and like bizarre the visuals can get, I do like that they try to communicate a lot of Bruce Banner's like thoughts and like fears visually. Like something that I liked is that when he got hit with the gamma radiation, he was in the hospital. Before he turned into the Hulk, he had like a bad dream where he was a kid and he was in his old childhood home, and there was like yelling and screaming behind his door, and then the door opens and then like it's the Hulk looking really fucking scary and like lit, like very dark, and it was like, yeah, like it's like the Hulk. First of all, is like fucking scary in that movie in terms of like Bruce Banner's mind, and I like how it visually keeps trying to connect the Hulk back to the old traumas and like show that like in a visually interesting way, and I think that's really cool. Um, there was another scene um, where like if you wanted to talk about like creepy Hulk scenes. So in the 2003 Hulk, there was one scene that is like burned into my brain forever, where it's like he's having like a dream, and he's in the bathroom and he's shaving his face, and then he like pauses and looks at the mirror, which is all fogged up, right? So he takes his hand and wipes the mirror, and then on the other side is the Hulk, like staring directly at him and like looking really mad. And then all of a sudden, the Hulk like crams his hand through the window, not the window, the mirror, and grabs him, and then looks at like holds him up to his face, looks at Bruce Banner, and goes puny human, and then like throws him into like the darkness behind him. And it's like, again, it's this,
fuck?
yeah, like it's really interesting how it portrays the Hulk. You know, again, it's viewed as like this second personality that's like threatening to take him over. You know, like it's threatening, like this anger from his past is threatening to completely consume him and like make him unrecognizable, which I think is a much more interesting character. But it also makes it a much darker movie, and it was also why I think that the movie was not well received on release, is because, well, first of all, the CGI did look weird. Hulk does look kind of uncanny at points, and like the but the big thing was that people were like, "There's not enough action in this Hulk movie." Like, there's a few scenes where he's like he fights some. One of the funnier parts of the movie is that Bruce's dad uh, has three dogs, and he uh, is trying to figure out how to recreate the gamma accident that made Bruce the Hulk. And so he's like testing it out on his dogs, and he makes them Hulk dogs. And then
What?
he like, yeah, he makes them Hulk dogs, and then he sticks them on Betty, uh, Bruce's love interest. And then like there's a fight scene where Hulk is like beating the shit out of these like fucking dogs. I think he like rips one of them in half
What the?
in the movie.
What?
Yeah, yeah, he like rips one in half. He takes one by the leg and like punches it in the nuts and then throws it. Like like he is brutal to these fucking dogs.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
PETA, where are you? PETA, help us.
Yeah, right. Holy shit. But like, you know, there's like there'll be like the Hulk dog scene, or there's a scene where he's like fighting like the tanks. There's like a brief scene where he fights his dad, but that's like over in like a minute. But like, it's not the Hulk smash movie, which is what the 2008 MCU Hulk movie was, and it was more of a like weird horror mystery movie, um, which people didn't like, and which kind of sucks because I think what that did is that forever kind of made Hulk like a less interesting character in the movies, because with the 2008 Hulk, they got rid of like the Bruce's dad. They got rid of, you know, like all the like psychological trauma stuff, all the multiple personality shit, and now he's just, I don't want to be angry, you know. And it's like they kind of reduced him down to the most basic form of that character. And then with like Mark Ruffalo Hulk, it gets even lighter, you know, to the and like it. If there's one thing that I can say that I don't quite like about Thor Ragnarok or like Infinity War and Endgame and shit, is that the Hulk becomes more and more and more just comic relief, or like if they need somebody big to punch things, but like he's not a character. You know, he doesn't have anything really to do, and that's also why I said that they wouldn't have been like there's no fucking way that Disney would have let Marvel make a movie about the Hulk having to merge his personalities together to become Professor Hulk, because that would require them to kind of go down a similar route of the 2003 Hulk, with him like having to like confront this other personality, and like where did this come from, and why, like go down that same rabbit hole of the trauma and the abuse, and like how those personalities came to be, and then trying to figure out how to merge them together would be like some weird like psychological body horror shit, I feel like. And there's no fucking way that Disney would let them do that shit. And it's sad because like with the comic especially, and I'm not even started talking about the Immortal Hulk, but like with the new comics especially, like the Hulk is a fucking amazing character. And it feels like he's just really like criminally underused. Um, and it kind of sours like my view on how the MCU treated the Hulk in general. And it's kind of emblematic of the 2008 movie, where it's just like, okay, so he gets mad, punches things, and he punches things, and then that's it. There you go. Also, they never brought back any of the Hulk's recurring villains or cast. Like, where's Thunderbolt Ross? Like, did he just disappear off the face of the planet, like, once the Avengers started? He's involved with the military. Wouldn't he eventually come into contact with S.H.I.E.L.D.? Wouldn't he have a problem with the Hulk, like, being on the Avengers? Wouldn't Betty want to talk to him? Like, also, fuck this whole, like, Joss Whedon, like, Hulk wants to bang Black Widow thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, like he already had a love interest who is more interesting than Black Widow.
Ouch.
Yeah, so but none of his side characters are present. None of his villains ever materialize. They only used the Abomination, which is like the least interesting, because Hulk has weird fucking villains. Like in the 2003 movie, it's not the right origin story for him, but like they have a guy called, like, his comic book name is the Absorbing Man, and literally his body just starts turning into whatever he touches, and so it becomes like, and he starts, like, the thing that he does that he can use to against the Hulk is that he can start absorbing all of the gamma radiation out of him and like make him weaker.
Oh, I know who you're talking about from I know this from Earth's Mightiest Heroes. He was a villain. Is this the same guy where he can like absorb sand and then he becomes sand, like basically?
Maybe that might also be Sandman from Spider-Man.
No, not from Sandman, but his general power is that he can like take a metal or something and then like put his hand on it and then he like becomes that metal. Is that the same guy?
Yeah, that's what he does. Like,
okay, yeah, that guy's...
It becomes like a part of his body.
Yeah, and that's a cool villain idea. It's like Kevin Levin.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like they could totally, they didn't go very far with that in the 2003 movie because it was like they were mainly focused on Bruce's dad, but like, they could use that. They could use, like, he had that weird fucking green alien guy, like the leader or whatever. Like they're like Red Hulk, Gray Hulk, like you had all of these like weird ass fucking villains that they could have used, and they're just like, no. He just wants to fuck Black Widow.
Yeah, dude, just fuck Black Widow. Who wouldn't want that as a motivation?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Just go to space. Sun's getting real low, but like, it's just disappointing, honestly, and I think what solidified my disappointment with the MCU treatment of the Hulk is the Immortal Hulk book, which, if there's anything I can compare it to, it is Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing. Back in, I think it was the 80s. But it feels very similar. And what I really enjoy about that book, and like, to be clear, I have not enjoyed a single Marvel book for like over a decade. And it's just because like none of the stories are like interesting to me. And like, so I was shocked to hear that this book even sounded interesting. But so what the idea is that in, I think it was Civil War II, Bruce Banner gets shot in the face with a arrow by Hawkeye, right?
Huh?
I think so.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, like he asks Hawkeye to shoot him in the brain with an arrow and kill him. And what happens, what he finds out is that, like, literally he can't die. So,
Oh, I think you're talking about the time that he mentioned that he shot himself in the mouth and he didn't die. I think that's what you're mentioning.
well, right, but it's like, well, true, but he also like, it was connected to Civil War, I think, but he had Hawkeye kill him, like assisted suicide style, by like shooting an arrow into a specific part of his brain. But like, but the thing is that like, what would happen is that even if Bruce Banner died, once the sun went down, the Hulk would kind of emerge and like reanimate his body. And so that, like, first of all, like, I really like how they gave the Hulk like a really like grotesque body horror element, because it looks disgusting when like dead Bruce Banner starts turning into the Hulk. And like there's even like there was one issue where literally the Hulk was captured by the military. They chopped him into like individual pieces and put all of the different pieces in jars and put them on the shelf to study the Hulk. And then eventually the Hulk figured out how to move his hands enough to break one of his hands out of the jars and start like reforming his entire body from being like vivisected into little pieces. And he also like absorbs one of the scientists inside his body as he's like putting himself back together. And he's like, "Oh fuck, I just killed that guy." All right.
What? I'm so confused.
Well, so like, what it is? So first of all, this takes the Hulk's powers and connects it to a supernatural reality. So it's not just that the gamma radiation like made him go nuts. What it is that, so part of the storyline is that people who are affected by gamma radiation are starting to come back from the dead. Not just Bruce, but like Bruce's wife, Betty, who died. She's coming back. Like some of Bruce's old friends are coming back, and they've been dead for years, and like shit like that, where you're like, okay, so gamma is something with gamma radiation is causing these people to become undead. And Bruce Banner has been doing that for a long time because he's like, first of all, he has no affiliation with the Avengers anymore. He has no lab. He has no nothing. He looks like, I've heard there's people in the comic who describe him as like a meth head looking dude. And he is like a random homeless looking guy who will appear in a town and he'll ask some weird questions at a bar. And then later that night, something weird happened where like this dude got fucking brutally murdered by some monster and we don't know who did it, you know? And like the first few issues act in like that very episodic kind of like him roaming from town to town, like as like a weird like judge, jury, and executioner kind of character. They're like, you see a gas station robbery gone wrong, and the robber accidentally shoots this like 12-year-old girl right in the head and like fucking kills her. And Bruce Banner is caught in the middle of this, and he gets shot and killed too. And so they take his body to the morgue, They, put the sheet over him. He's stuck in the morgue, and then his body starts transforming. And then as the Hulk, which first of all, the Hulk can talk now in like complete sentences and has like reasoning of his own. The Hulk like reanimates Bruce's body, finds the guy who killed that girl, and then does he kill his friends? I don't know. He at the very least like mangles the shit out of them. He like kills all his friends and like then beats the living fuck out of this dude. Like all of his bones are broken. Like he might be in a coma for the rest of his life, kind of shit. Right. And then they're like, so that dude that was dead that we couldn't identify, he's gone. And then people like that's when people start piecing together like, maybe the Hulk is alive. But it's like, how's that? Bruce is dead. So that's kind of you have this like reporter character who I actually like how her character arc is going because her goal is not to stop the Hulk. I thought that was what they were building up to because like these people like find her and they're like, you need to know this. Like the Hulk is alive still. And he's like doing some fucked up shit like around the country and you might want to track him down. And like you think it's going to be like she's mad at him for like accidentally like destroying her house or killing her dad or something. Like she keeps having these like flashbacks to like an encounter with the Hulk like years and years ago when she was a child. And you think that it's going to be like she's going to try and kill him or stop him or something. But what I thought was really interesting is that she finds the Hulk and she wants to figure out how to be like him. Like she wants his power, which I thought was an interesting twist on that kind of character setup. And I'm really interested to see like where her arc goes as far as like wanting to be like the Hulk, wanting, because she's like, I'm angry all the time. I fucking hate all kinds of shit, but I get told to shut up, but you can do whatever you want and people will pardon you. They'll, you were an Avenger. You would destroy a city and then they made you an Avenger, And so she's like, I want to figure out how to have that, which I think is a very interesting character dynamic to have. But the larger thing that starts out very much in the background is that there are people who are infected by gamma when they come back or when they are about to die, because he's also fighting some newly irradiated people who have like powers that they can't control and shit. Which also, that was a great issue too, because you're hearing it from the perspectives of different people and how they view the Hulk, which is really cool. But like every time that he's fighting anybody who's gamma radiated, they say something about a green door, right? And so what the green door is it's basically like what people with gamma radiation see when they die, and it's basically the gateway to hell. And how they define hell in this storyline is really interesting because, first of all, this book has literally 3 issues of a like narrator, like a third-person narrator outside of the storyline, like umming and ohing and like thinking about the nature of God and creation and hell, and like for everything there must be an equal opposite. So like one of the questions that I think the narrator poses, like, does God have a Hulk? And so what they describe hell as is it's like the inverse of all of creation, right? If God made the world that we know, God's equal opposite, or his Hulk, made hell. And what's starting to happen is that the hell world is starting to leak into the normal world from the green door. And that was started by Bruce Banner when he first became the Hulk. And so that's why like he literally can't die. Like he is like there's no way that you can kill him. And then that's also why like all these gamma radiated people are coming back. They're all seeing this door. Bruce's dad comes back from the dead as a ghost and tries to possess Bruce Banner through the Hulk, which does not work. But it's like it's just like it's fucking crazy. Like it has body horror shit. It has psychological horror with like Bruce and so he now has like 4 personalities now, not just the 2. He has Bruce Banner. He has Savage Hulk, which is the Hulk that we all know where he throws a fit and just breaks shit. We have Joe Fixit, who is like if Bruce Banner was like a scheming, mischievous, like used car salesman type who just goes around like starting shit. And then you have the kind of Hulk that is the main focus of this book, which is called the Devil Hulk, who is
What? Oh, that sounds badass.
right. Well, and it's like this. So this Hulk is like he forms complete sentences. He has his own motivations and reasoning for why he does what he does. He's according to the book, he is the the first personality that ever formed, like the first of the alternate personas that Bruce Banner ever got, and he has been there, like in the background of his mind since he was a child. Like he was like this Hulk is part of Bruce Banner's coping mechanism as a child for dealing with his abusive dad. And like it's interesting to see how Devil Hulk is like really protective of Bruce Banner. Like he actually cares about Bruce Banner and like wants to protect him and like wants to defend him. And he always talks about like he's like I don't he's like you can't do anything to me, but if you hurt the other guy, that's when I get pissed off. And like it's weird to see like him and the Hulk personality have like like a dialogue, like a back and forth, you know? Like they communicate with each other, even in like really subtle and bizarre ways. Like in one issue he describes how like the Devil Hulk will communicate with him through like weird feelings. Like he calls it like an itch in the back of his head, where like when like he hears something about somebody doing some fucked up shit, he starts getting an itch in the back of his head, and that itch gets stronger when he goes near the bar. So he thinks maybe he should go to the bar and ask somebody, and you know that the itch gets stronger when he finds an actual lead and shit like that. So he like the Devil Hulk is actively wanting to be like a judge of humanity in a way, because what he wants to do is like punish people for what they've done, which kind of makes sense because like he was he came about as a way of wanting to punish his dad for hurting him, right? So he kind of is that he's kind of extended that to I'm going to punish people who do bad things. And then as he, you know, keeps going and as he like exists more as the Devil Hulk, he basically becomes an anarchist. And he's like, so I'm thinking about destroying all of human civilization because uh, human civilization has done nothing but like gut the planet of all its natural resources, and everyone is abusing all of their power in order to fuck over everybody else, and like the civilization that we have in place is causing more harm to the planet and to humanity than good. And so if I destroy human civilization, there is a chance that humanity can rebuild into something better. And that becomes the Devil Hulk's like motivation in the story.
That's a fascinating motivation.
Right. And it's like there's so much in this like book that's like so fucking interesting and like just weird and out there. And like there's part of this like there are parts in the story that are like genuinely like fucked up and horrifying. Like even just like how the Hulk looks when and like how like he's sadistic, you know? Like he Like when he beats the fuck out of that dude who shot that kid, he sneaks up behind him after beating up all of his friends and shit, and then this dude shaking in his boots trying to get to his car, and then he gets right up behind him, and then he's like her name was so and so, and then he turns around and it's like he's just right there, and he's like she was 12, and then starts talking to him about did it feel good when you pulled the trigger, huh? Do you like how that gun feels in your hand? It feels a lot heavier, doesn't it, when you're about to shoot somebody, and fucking with it mentally. And then the dude's having a mental breakdown, being like, "I'm not a bad person. Haven't you ever done something wrong? I'm not a bad guy, am I?" And he's like, I don't know. What do you think?" And then he just mangles the fuck out of him. And you can tell that Devil Hulk enjoys that. He enjoys punishing people. And it's not that he mindlessly destroys shit and then, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Hulk likes what he does now. And he thinks that there is a bigger purpose behind it. And it's fucking fascinating, this book. And it's insane that Marvel even let them do this, because Hulk sells a lot of action figures. Hulk's pretty popular in them movies. And you would think that they would be very against turning him into this swamp thing, Frankenstein, horrible monster person. But they did. We have Anarchist Hulk now. And it's fucking amazing. It's a great book. I would say that if I had any criticisms of it, there's a few too many cameos from other Avengers. Oh look, it's Captain Marvel, it's Iron Man, and then just okay, cool. Can we go back to the shit that I care about, please? So there's a bit too much of that in the book, but other than that, it is a fucking fantastic series, and it made me really enjoy the Hulk again. I forgot how much I actually liked that character growing up, and it's a phenomenal story, and it makes me really sad. And again, that and the 2003 movie both make me really fucking sad that Disney and Marvel don't want to do anything interesting with the Hulk in the MCU.
Damn, that's actually really interesting.
It's fucking awesome. It's great.
Man, and none of this has been adapted into movie form except for maybe the 2003 Hulk.
Yeah, no. It's again, it's the general public perception of Hulk is what was from I think it was in the 70s. There was a 70s live action TV show.
Oh no, with the guy that was painted green. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that's probably the most popular interpretation of the Hulk. And that is the version of the Hulk that they stuck with for the MCU. The Edward Norton movie feels like a movie adaptation of that 70s show. In terms of that, it's literally just, I'm Bruce Banner, and I'm trying to live a normal life, and then, I got mad, and then the Hulk came out, and now I gotta move to a new location. That's the Hulk. And to a lot of people, and that's the Hulk to Marvel, and as far as the movies go. I mean, fuck, they just decided to shoot him into space and Ultron and not get back to him until Ragnarok.
Shoot him into... Well, to be fair, though, he didn't shoot into space by somebody else. He did it himself.
Okay, well...
It didn't make any sense because he was on a plane.
We don't know who really did it. Right. We don't know who really did it. Joss Whedon.
Yes! He did.
Joss Whedon shot the Hulk into space.
Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. But, it's just... because, and it's, I guess it's, easier to digest for people. Oh, he gets mad and then he freaks out, but then he feels bad about it and he doesn't want to do it. I guess that's easier for people to understand, I guess, because a lot of these, the Immortal Hulk especially, but even 2003 Hulk had Bruce Banner was not a completely good person, and he something that I thought was really interesting that he said in the 2003 movie was he was the scariest thing to me is that the moment that I lose it and I turn into the Hulk and I like lose control, like I like it. You know, like he like he doesn't want to turn to the Hulk, but once he feels that power, he enjoys it, which I think makes that character feel very different than if he's just, oh no, I can't believe I turned to the Hulk again. You know, it's just like there's with the 2003 Hulk and with this Immortal Hulk book, it just feels like there's so many more layers to this character, and there's so many more interesting things about him, and so many like cool, crazy stories that you can tell with him. And but I don't think they're ever going to do that because that would require them to not do the standard Marvel shit.
And we can't have that happen now, can we?
Yeah, we can't. No, we can't have Hulk be interesting. He just gotta be boring as shit. But so I would not recommend the 2008 Hulk. If you've noticed that I did not say much about it, it's because there's not really much to say about it. It is Hulk Smash, the movie. It is perfectly fine, but it is not interesting. And the 2003 Hulk is a much more interesting movie, even if it's got some weird shit in it. Fun fact, that movie was directed by Ang Lee, the director of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Brokeback Mountain. And
Oh
Life of
yeah,
Pi.
yeah, I heard about that.
Yep. So crazy time the early 2000s were. But also, if everybody should read The Immortal Hulk, it's a great fucking book. It's the most I've ever liked a Marvel comic. It's fantastic.
I'm probably gonna go read that, or at least like show. Here, let me see if I can find it on YouTube.
Hopefully. But yeah, it's a wonderful book. The art's actually pretty good too, which was also refreshing because I'm so used to Marvel books having garbage art.
It has the full story here. Nice.
Oh my god! Great. That's awesome. Great.
Shut up, comic historian. Don't need you here. But yeah, thank you. Anyway, cool. I'm just gonna post it in our DMs. That way I remind myself.
Cool.
There it is. Cool. I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna probably use that as the footage because movie shit is copyrighted to hell.
Oh yeah. Yep. So what's the next Marvel movie we want to talk about?
I procrastinated rewatching it because I remember being bored out of my fucking mind when I saw it.
Where do I start? So, you know how Iron Man 1 actually I think we did a pretty good job at explaining what makes Iron Man 1 good, because Iron Man 2 takes that and then it just like throws it out the window and then kicks it and then punts it over like a football stadium. Okay? It has no idea what it's doing or like what it's trying to be, except trying to be the first one, but it makes no sense. There are a lot of things in this film that makes no sense. Like there's the bad guys that don't make any sense. Everything is easy for Tony. The dying thing comes from out of nowhere. The dialogue, do you know how that banter in Iron Man 1 was kind of endearing between like Pepper and like Iron Man and stuff? Now it's just annoying. It's really annoying.
Alright.
Yeah, there's that. The car crash didn't kill him somehow, even though it like rams a car into him, and he's still alive. Cool. The car fight scene is like really bad. No one decides to shoot at Whiplash for no reason. Like, the fight with War Machine is even worse. What? Like what?
No, there's two Iron Man.
It's not good. There's like a lot of individual things to go over, but let's just say for like the sake of it, it makes no sense.
Well, not just that, but I feel like the biggest problem with that movie. Sorry, I'm eating chips right now, but like the biggest problem with the movie is that it's just like running in place. Like the entire movie is just like Tony Stark waiting for his Avengers paperwork to go through so that he can join the super team, and he's just like waiting around. Black Widow's like hanging out, being weird, and then Nick Fury's like, "You better start shaping up, be an Avenger," and then like that's the movie. And then like they also started this thing that I really hate, which is like every Iron Man villain seems to just be an old business associate of Tony Stark's that he fucked over.
Kinda. Okay, so where do I even start with the villains? So we have two villains in this movie instead of one. Which, by the way, the first villain in Iron Man 1 wasn't great, but it made sense why he was in there. He was like the father figure, and when he saw that Tony Stark's change, he didn't want that to happen. He's sort of like a version, a mirror reflection, if you will, of himself, which a lot of superhero tropes take. But the reason why that works is because he runs counter to his arc. So the only way to complete his arc, he has to beat him. It makes sense.
Right.
Arc in Iron Man 2 is that he's dying, which, like I said, makes no sense because in the first film, once he established the centerpiece inside of him, it was left of like, oh, okay, so he's fine now. Then in Iron Man 2, it's like, oh, it's slowly killing him, and it's like, what? You see what? I swear the last film didn't like mention this at all, if at any, and then this film like completely makes the idea of, oh, now it's killing him, so he has to make a new element out of a building display that his father made, and then use the building display as like a circle, and then that circle of the town becomes an element, and then that element so happens to conveniently help him from not dying.
Look, man, we have to stretch out the running time somehow, all right?
It makes no sense, though. I just don't get it. Like, out of all the things he could have come up with, that's, like, it's not even that Tony Stark finds it on his own. He has to, like, his father already invented it, but didn't have, like, the technology to, I guess, I think? Question mark?
Right, because, like, Robert Stark can fucking make Captain America, but can't figure out how to make that, and figured out, like, the arc shit before.
He even learned how... Like, back in World War II, he didn't, like, make the greatest version of a flying car, but he got really close to making a flying car in the World War II era. That's insane. And yet he can't find out the element that he had to make out of a building to tell his son that conveniently is also around in his office that Tony Stark just happens to have and didn't happen to throw it away, and it wasn't even, like, where his father's stuff would...
Again, it's just like it just smacks of like not being needed. Again, it's just we need to make another Iron Man movie, but we can't really do too much because we're still waiting for the Avengers to come out. So he needs to make a new artificial heart, and he needs to fight another angry businessman. And he's to have the same arc that he had in the first one, but over again.
It's not even that he has the same arc. It's just that his arc in Iron Man 2 is non-existent because the arc is about him, like, trying not to die. But that's not a character arc. You realize that, you realize that, right? It's not a character arc for the character to come to the realization, oh, I'm dying, I'm going to try and make the most of it. That's not really much of an arc. And that too, and something that really annoyed me when watching the film, especially right after watching Iron Man 1, is that it feels completely out of nowhere for Tony to start doing these things. Like, he throws, like, a huge party, and then he, like, does, like, the most fuck shit as possible. And it feels like all that, like, character growth that he went through in the first film kind of just goes away. I get it, he's dying, and you're going to make irrational decisions, but the decisions that he makes after Iron Man 1 seem kind of out of nowhere.
Well, again, it's because like it seems like all these movies ever can think of to do, and this is like a big problem I have with how Marvel writes their characters, and I'm sure we'll get into this more with Captain America, but it's like they have they are all either one or two dimensional at most. And all they can figure out to do with these characters is so Tony Stark is like kind of an asshole and he doesn't take things seriously, so he needs to learn to take things seriously. Even though he already learned to do that in the first movie, and he needs to relearn to do that in the second movie, and then he needs to relearn that in the third movie. And like you said, it feels like all of the character development from Iron Man 1 is just gone. And then he's back doing the same old shit that he was doing, and then he has to learn to take things seriously again, and blah blah blah, and then it resets sometime in between the Avengers and Iron Man 3. So it's just like it's like, what else do you do with this character? Like, come on.
Yeah, and the thing is that what I've learned specifically from The Dark Knight, if anything, is that it kind of like Batman. Notoriously, I like to go to Batman when it comes to like superhero stuff, mostly because Batman gets all the symptoms of like the comic book issues, but is also somehow there's always a good story out there due to there being so much media of him of how it works. And a good example of this is like The Dark Knight. He doesn't really go through much of an arc in The Dark Knight. Mostly just understands the world more. But the way that this was conveyed was like through the villains and like the setting and everything else. And it showed me that essentially you don't necessarily need an arc to make for a good character. Yes, that can work, but like you can still have the movie be very intense and interesting if we give them enough development and then have everything else be interesting. The problem is that in Iron Man 2, the only thing that is interesting, or what is trying to make you think is interesting outside the really bad arc that really isn't an arc, is that the villains suck. They absolutely are the worst, because Jack Hammer essentially is a guy that isn't as smooth as Tony, and he's not as smart, so he feels bad for Tony, and he's also like a bad guy. And this makes no sense to me, because if you're fighting Iron Man 1, like we've already established, is like a version of him where he needs to complete that arc, right? This Hammer doesn't really do that. Hammer is just kind of like there, like against his arc. He doesn't have anything to do with Tony. He's just like a less good version of Tony that he just mocks all the time. So the villain feels completely unintimidating. So like Jack Hammer is like where like a majority of this film happens, and yet he's like treated like a bumbling idiot. This is supposed to be your villain, and he's treated he's
Well, that reminds me of Uncharted 4 in a weird way, where the main villain in that game was Rafe, and Rafe was like throughout the entire game, like the story was telling you that Rafe is basically wannabe Nathan Drake. He's a pussy. He can't do anything on his own, and he hires other people to do his dirty work for him, while Nathan Drake just does it all himself. And that kind of makes the ending of that game a lot weaker, because instead of fighting Nadine, who is actually a threat and is actually an intimidating presence, like she just runs away, and then you have to spend the last level sword fighting Rafe, who you've been told the whole time is a complete non-entity and a complete like non-threat. And it kind of feels like that, where it's like they're trying to make him again kind of like an equal opposite of Tony, but then in this weird way, it's not that he is like superior or evil or more conniving or anything like that. It's just he's less cool, and it's like a weird way to go for your, like, if you're trying to do that kind of villain arc. And going back to the villain thing, like with the Dark Knight, yeah, Batman doesn't really have an arc in that one, but what the thing that makes that movie work is that, like, he's always being overwhelmed by the Joker or by, like, shit with Two-Face and things like that. And honestly, what it is like, if you're not going to have your character be interesting on his own and not, like, have any, like, real goal or motivation, you need to have some, like, the villain who has something, like, some goal or motivation or something interesting about him that it becomes a threat to him that he has to react to. But again, there's not really any of that there. Just it's just running in place.
Yeah. And actually, the running in place line that you keep on saying is absolutely true, because this is one of the slowest movies. Like, this movie moves at such a slow pace. Everything is, like, done with, like, a few scenes after where it should have taken place. But yeah, and you're right about the Dark Knight thing, and I think a lot of what holds up that movie is Two-Face and Joker, because they fundamentally, like, from an ideological standpoint, is like the opposite of Batman, and you can kind of make that work. But and then there's one more villain. Oh boy, aka I want my Bird Man. My Bird Man, is he figures out how to hack into Jack Hammer's suits because computers, and then gets them all to, like, kill Iron Man. And I think his explanation is that his dad dies of something from Tony Stark or something like that. Here, let me go check.
I mean, what's weird is that, like, I think there was, like, literally one scene where Whiplash actually, like, had a physical confrontation with Iron Man, and then the rest of the time he was just kind of hanging out in a lab, like, doing computers.
They appeared, despite the fact that...
Yes, well, there's only two confrontations. One with, at the beginning of the car race, where he just, like, decides to use his whips and stuff. Oh, by the way, he goes to prison, and then Hammer breaks him out. Which I'm starting to slowly realize that Hammer is literally just, like, the plot convenience of whatever wants to happen just happens. Instead of an actual villain, which is not that surprising, I guess. But, okay, so... it seems like he got technology from Howard Stark and has been studying Iron Man, but we don't know why. Here, I'm gonna Google this.
Villain reasons.
Okay, what? Okay, so Valko is his name, which is the most forgettable name ever, but whatever. Valko replied that he wanted to remove Tony's AoE from the people and demonstrate that Iron Man could be defeated. Ivo also deduced that Tony was being poisoned by the platinum whatever in his arc reactor, saying that platinum in his chest is a painful way to die. But if he figured out that the thing was killing him, why wouldn't he just let him die? But why does he want to defeat him?
Because the movie needs to be 2 hours, okay? Fuck. Stop asking questions.
Yeah, I can't ask questions about simple character motivations, God.
Yeah, he's there to do bad guy stuff, alright? God.
Like, okay, the very fact that I have to look it up with a Google search to, like, figure out the motivations of the bad guy, and, wait, I just realized, what's Hammer's motivation?
He's jealous, probably.
That's it, really?
That's what I felt like. It was like he's got, like... Well, again, it's like, because his entire character is that he's wannabe Tony Stark, so it's just that, like, I'm not as good as Tony Stark, but I want what he has, so I'm gonna try and fuck him over so that I can be in the spotlight. That's what I remember his motivation being.
I guess so, but, okay, so the main issue with this is that when I was just thinking about it, is that in Iron Man 1, Howard, no, not Howard, or whatever bald man with beard is, that guy.
Right, Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that guy. He essentially is literally, like, Tony's, like, change literally affects him. Because then he can't make nearly as much money as he did before. So his main reason is greed, but this could also do him really bad in the long term. Like, in terms of, like, his credibility and everything else. But Hammer, on the other hand, like, I don't know. Like, Hammer and, like, Whiplash's motivation makes even less sense. Because why does he want to show that Tony wants to be beaten? I don't get this. I don't get this film. I'm done.
Again, we're just waiting for the Avengers paperwork to come in, and then he can join the team.
That's true. That's what he... I think they did this as a last-second reaction to, like, so we have Captain America, and we don't have Thor yet, or we don't have these two characters yet, but we need to have something happen. So, sequel? And then...
Right.
They had the sequel, and it's not nearly as good because, of course, it's not going to be good when you rush it out the window and you're kind of only just waiting for Avengers to happen. Because they didn't even bother to, like I said, they didn't bother, number one, to, like, give him a good arc in the first place if you're going to have an arc. And then, two, if you're not going to have an arc, at least make the villains interesting or have him pose a certain threat in his livelihood. But that's never happens because... Really, there's not really much of a threat that most of these villains face except for maybe Whiplash. But that's only, like, one time in maybe the race car. But even then, when Iron Man gets his suit on, he's boned. So,
Right. Well, it's a definition of things happen. Like, it's not a story. It's just a sequence of events that are... Like, it's like... The other thing it reminds me of is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Where it's less like an actual story and it's more just like franchise maintenance. Because it's like, remember Nick Fury? Remember that we talked about the Avengers initiative? Remember, like, hey, look at Black Widow. Remember Iron Man? We're really going to do this Avengers thing, guys. Like, remember Agent What's-His-Ass? Like, It's literally just trying to, like, keep you remembering that the Avengers is going to come out. Similarly to how, like, Amazing Spider-Man 2, literally its entire storyline was just going, look, it's going to be that guy. He's going to show up in a future movie, maybe. Look, it's that Dr. Octopus suit. Oh, look, the Green Goblin.
Yeah, that's what this is. Because, like... thinking about it, when you just said that, like, it flashes before my eyes of, like, why is Black Widow in this film? And why is Nick Fury in this film? It made sense at the end of Iron Man 1 because he become, like, a one-man machine at that point. Oh, by the way, here's a storyline that completely goes out the window. At the, first, like, near the beginning of the movie, he's called into, like, Congress, I think. And they challenge him as, like, hey... You're not under the government, and we want Iron Man to do things, so, yeah, bad Tony Stark, and then they bring Justin Hammer in, and then Hammer does, like, a poor job because Tony hacks the systems, and he shows, like, bad footage that makes Hammer look bad because reasons. So, and then, like, Tony makes everybody laugh and stuff, and then he, like, leaves, and then that arc just doesn't kind of happen. That arc only goes, like, circles to Rhodey. So because Tony got drunk, Rhodey got in the other suit, and then he, like, repainted it and stuff, and then he then worked for the government now. So that kind of plot line between, like, Tony and, like, the government kind of goes out the window. Because even if you have a good version of Iron Man, like, Iron Man also, the only one that is a threat is Iron Man himself. So why aren't you, like, following up on any of that? Just because you get another version of Iron Man doesn't mean, like, the first Iron Man is out of the... I don't... Ah!
Well, and again, this comes back to Marvel's inability to, like, actually hold its characters accountable for anything. Because, again, this is like the same thing that happened with Civil War. At the very start of the movie, it makes you think, okay, so we're going to deal with the fact that the Avengers are basically a military strike team that just cause fuck tons of collateral damage wherever they go. And then all of a sudden that idea gets completely thrown out the window, and then it goes, well, Bucky's my friend. Well, no, I thought I was your friend. Now we're going to fight.
Everybody wants to be friends with Loki. Come on.
Service to the idea of... Right, well, it's just like they want to pay lip service to these ideas of, like, oh, these guys have, like, these actions have consequences outside of the superhero action movie that they're in, but then they never follow that up. And it's really irritating. But again, it's Marvel, so you can't ever have stakes. Nothing serious or interesting can happen.
Yeah. It's just a shame because I think the number one film out of all these films that I think could have done an even better job was Iron Man 2, really, if you think about it.
Right.
Is that out of the most of these movies, a lot of these films, especially in Phase 1, are all just origin films. But in Iron Man 2, you then have the creative freedom. Like in Iron Man 2, you can do... I remember two main big arcs that make up Iron Man that a lot of people see him as. One is Demon in the Bottle, his problem with alcohol issues, which really could have been its own movie. Like, not only is this completely relatable for, like, a lot of people, because a lot of people tend to, like, either have a fascination with alcohol or, like it a lot, and that was, like, one of the big comics at the time that pushed for, like, a more adult tone and adult, like, themes and stuff. And that could have been a perfect way to deal with that. Even though it's not that big of a thing in Iron Man 1, still having this would have been great. But there's another arc that he could have done, which is called Iron Wars. Iron Wars is essentially where a couple of bad guys, I think, take all of Iron Man's suits, all the suits that he's been working on, and then they just, like, use it for their own means, which is kind of what Iron Man 3 is. But Iron Man 3, at the end, he all destroys them, and they don't really do much. So I don't know.
And that's I'm pretty sure that's the setup for the Armor Wars trademark TV series coming in Marvel Phase 4.
Wait, what? Really? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's probably better than Bat Wheels, so.
Yeah, but, like, well, right. Well, like, the issue with doing that in the second movie is that he only has, like, 2 or 3 suits. And then it's also, like, I feel like a good thing for Iron Man 2, well, I also feel like it could be an Iron Man 3 thing. Because, like, Iron Man 3 also likes to flirt with the idea of, like, Tony has PTSD, but then doesn't really do anything with it. So it would have been more interesting if, like, after the Avengers, he got PTSD and then, like, fell into alcoholism. And then, like, kind of do the Demon in the Bottle story. Which would make more sense and would be a good, like, would probably be a good, like, again, character-focused story. But I don't know if they could do that just straight off of the second one, because I feel like you need to have something happen to take him from, I'm going to be responsible and I am Iron Man, to, like, fuck all this. But again, can't do anything because we're just waiting for Avengers to happen. It's just this movie, I don't know why they decided to make this movie, but fuck?
Yeah, that's the number one question I've been asking myself is, after saying all the things that I mentioned, is just, why does this film need to exist? At least with the
Right.
other films, you can make the judgment and say, oh, it's to forward this or that, but really the only thing this film sets up in terms of like the greater MCU is just Black Widow and Black Widow.
Oh, right. Well, and she also gets introduced, she gets reintroduced as a regular character in Avengers, so you technically don't even need to have her introduced here.
Right, so
And also, what it kind of highlights is, it's like, okay, all the other ones are origin stories, right? But the problem is that it feels like all of these characters become uh, like stationary or like stagnant as soon as their origin story is complete. Their origin story is the arc that takes them from regular human being into superhero, and then they stay as superhero for the entire rest of time. And like, you can't really do anything else with that because like it either becomes what it is that like they have to restore the status quo at the end. So Iron Man can have, you know, whatever the fuck happened to him for this one movie, but then at the end of the day, it's all gonna be as if nothing happened, and he's just Iron Man doing his Iron Man thing again. Captain America is just still here doing his Captain America thing. He's just in the future now.
yeah, I don't
Like, the
know.
only time where there is any character development with any of these fucking heroes is in their ascent into superhero-dom. And then after that, they're just there. Like, again, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange just is there to do magic stuff after he does his Iron Man 1 arc. He's just there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like, I'm just really saddened because, like, we have good stories with Iron Man, especially, like, probably next to Spider-Man has, like, the most amount of arcs and also the most consistently, like, probably decent out of the arcs, you know? There's, like, a lot of interesting stories that Iron Man takes, except when he's not a black girl! Except when that happens, but other than that...
Right, well, dude, were you telling me that you're not excited for the Ironheart TV show? Remember in the comic books and Riri Williams was getting mad at her white teacher for not being racist towards her?
Oh, no, please, no.
Doesn't that do a really terrible job in representing any kind of racial diversity when giving them a, like, really one-dimensional victim complex in light of actual racist issues? She's getting mad that her teacher isn't saying to her that she can't be whatever she wants to be? Wow. How woke.
I just want to die now.
Isn't it actually kind of racist that the black girl steals Iron Man's suit and becomes Iron Man because of it?
That is true. What are you trying to say, that black people can steal stuff? Come on. And then take stuff from the white people? Damn.
Right, like, isn't that, like, ironically, like, as woke as Marvel was trying to be with that storyline, they made, like, the most stereotypical, like, black people, am I right, kind of reason for her getting the Iron Man suit?
I can't... Like, I have little to no faith with what Marvel's coming up to do in Phase... Actually, this is a good break. First, let me wrap up Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2, overall, bad film. It's big bad. Not good. It takes every squandered effort that could have made a good film, and then they throw it completely in the dumpster. The one thing good that we have is Don Cheadle. But other than that, most of this film is complete other waste of time. You don't even really need to see it, and I doubt that many people do need to see it before going into the next one. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that really changes when we get to Avengers is, oh, it's a triangle now? Nice, I think. And then, yeah, that's it. So,
Right. Yeah, it doesn't need to exist. It's not essential viewing. I don't know why it's here. It's a skip out of 10.
Skip out of 10. Wouldn't review again.
Yep.
The next one after Iron Man 2 is Thor 1.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thor 1 is a movie.
Wow, it is!
It is. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I can't specifically point to certain things that I like per se. It's mostly just a lot of the similar stuff that, we've seen at this point, especially like compared to Iron Man. But like I said before in that live stream, I think the ways that they get there is like very different. For instance, like Tony's arc of selflessness mostly comes to the fact that he's harmed other people, while Thor is more of a way to kind of prove it to himself and to his father and like the people around him, instead of
Right.
like not because of people necessarily. It's mostly from himself.
All right. It's because he has to learn humility.
Yeah, basically.
And I think it's interesting that you said it wasn't that you can't point out anything good, specifically good about it. And that's when I remember watching it, like, in the theater, because I saw it in the theater. When I walked out of it, I was like, well, it wasn't bad. And, like, because I thought it was going to suck when I walked into the theater seeing that movie. And I was pleasantly surprised that it just wasn't bad. But I also don't feel like it turned into anything, like, good either. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Like, yes, Thor has an arc, and that's good. Like, very good. We reached the bare minimum. But, like, I don't know. It is very much a conniving brother, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, wait. Go back. You have to repeat everything that you said because you cut out completely.
Shit. Well, I said it's very familiar in terms of the fish out of water storyline and kind of the asshole character who has to learn humility and like conniving people taking advantage of his like incompetence. And it feels really, really familiar. And again, like the only thing I can tell you about it stylistically is that everything has a Dutch angle.
Those Dutch angles are cool. I liked it.
I mean, you can like the Dutch angles, but that's the only thing I can remember that movie did that had like a visual style to it.
Exactly. Oh, that too, and the kind of glowiness feeling in a lot of the shots for some reason. I don't know what that was. That wasn't like saturation adjustment. It must have to do something in post-ending with the light. That's the only thing I can think of.
Right. Well, it's still definitely part of the Marvel era where everything looks cheap and shitty.
Yeah.
So
It's not like quite there for a true film look yet,
right. It looks more like a fan film on video.
Yeah. But even Dying is Easy looked better than that. Got him?
Ugh. Got him. But what else? Natalie Portman was there.
She was indeed there. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. That's what I feel like a lot of these characters are, is it's like they're just kind of there. They're inoffensive. They're not like terrible. It's not like Black Widow and fucking what's his ass and the other what's his ass and Iron Man 2, where you're just like, why the fuck are you guys even here? What the hell is wrong with you? Like, they're more just like, yeah, there's Thor's friends. There they are. There's Thor's love interest, and then her angry mentor figure, and then the dumb one, who later becomes the smart one in WandaVision. There they are. I don't, like,
Yeah, I feel... do you know what the worst part about that is, what you just mentioned?
What?
Is that the fact that you know that old guy, right?
Right.
So it turns out I was watching the film, and I saw the old guy, and I was like, where do I remember him? Him and his lips and his, like, face all the time, looking, like, curious and, like, sad all the time, and I was like...
Yeah, that one guy, the one with the lips.
Yeah, the one with the lips, yeah. Who is this guy? And then, like, when I was watching the film, I, like, slowly, like, I was like, Shinobu!
Shinobu?
Yeah, Shinobu.
You're gonna have to enlighten me because I don't know which Shinobu you're talking about.
Okay, so Shinobu, as you say it in English with an English slant on it, Shinobu is actually a TV show, essentially. It's a short mini-series on HBO.
Okay.
It has the reason why I got into the show in the first place was because the score is the same score that, or the same artist that did Joker's score from the movie. So I thought, I looked into it. Great show, by the way. And he essentially plays like the general, or like the person in chain of command. And he's played as like this very like calm, collected type character that's like really concerned about the world around him. And he's like a really good actor, especially when it comes to the realization at the end of the miniseries, spoiler alert, but that he's dying, you know. And that kind of like, we can see that in his eyes, and like his acting overall is really good. And he's got to be like a really good actor that I'm looking forward towards because he has such a interesting personality when it comes to how he wants to direct. He has like, or how he wants to act. But all that being said, none of this acting shows up in Thor 1, which I'm really disappointed by because I really think he's a good actor, but I guess not. So oh well.
Oh, are you saying Chernobyl?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were saying Shinobu, as in Shinobu, and then I found a bunch of weird anime shit, and I'm like, this can't be right.
Yeah, dude, my favorite anime.
Yeah, favorite anime, Shinobu, with dude from Thor 1 in it.
He was in the anime, of course.
Of course he was. That's why you can see his facial expression so well.
Yeah, because just imagine we go back and look at Thor 1, it's like, no, that can't be right. And then we see him with like anime eyes and stuff, and he's like drawn like an anime character, and we're like, oh my god, it was in front of us the whole time.
I can't believe I missed that. Oh, but yeah, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's... again, it's just like they're just kind of there. I mean, and that, to me, like it's not as bad as Iron Man 2, but I don't feel like it was great either. It was just there. It was just inoffensive.
To me, it was more like a 6 out of 10. I do agree with the fact that it was underrated, but that's mostly because a lot of people just in general don't talk about the film. So one of the things that I actually really did like about Thor versus any other like movies that come after the MCU is kind of a similar issue that you have with the Hulk. And that's with Loki. Loki in Thor 1 can be seen almost as not necessarily the super bad guy or like the worst type of person, but he seems to do all the evil actions that he commits seem to not take pleasure in it. Like when he tells Thor that his father is dead, he like has this quick look of like sorrow and like sadness, either of like regret that he's doing this in the first place, and it makes his character in the subtle ways really interesting because he's not like somebody to take joy in that type of mischief, you know, like it would imply. And even in like, as we see through most of his motivations, that Loki actually thinks that he is better than Thor when it comes to ruling the throne. He thinks he should. He thinks that it's like better for the people in a way. So I feel like there's a lot of sympathy for this hero, and at the very end he sees that how he's failed his father, how he's failed his brother, and at the end he kind of lets go, and it's kind of actually beautiful in a way that he had a character that was so had so much sympathy like ended that way, and because he wanted his desperation for love so badly, at the end it meant nothing, and it's like a really sad way to end. Then Avengers 1 happens, which we'll get to that, but yeah, it's like
Right.
it feels
And
like
then Avengers 1 happens and completely ruins his character. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a bummer. Like, he actually felt like a legitimate villain instead of just like a weird comic relief character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. And I could also see the argument that Show had, which I hope, if he ever hears about all my shit talk, I hope he knows that it's just in good fun and I'm just busting his chops. But fucking, where he was talking about how, like, Thor is treated more jokey as he goes further on. Like, I feel like Dark World went too far into, like, serious Thor direction and kind of was stupid. But, like, I understand that, like, even in the comics that Ragnarok takes inspiration from, Thor is still a character that you take seriously, even if funny things happen in those books. So I can kind of understand the criticism of Ragnarok.
Yeah, but also, by the way, I did send him that clip of us talking about it. He thought it was funny. He really liked it.
Good. I was like, I hope I'm not making this dude mad at me. But it's, I would agree with like the 6 out of 10 rating.
I think that's a fair. It's better than average. So
right. It should, like, the weird thing is, to me, again, like, I keep forgetting that fucking Kenneth Branagh directed it. Just fucking weird to me. Because again, I only remember him from all of his Shakespeare shit, and I'm like, how did you get to being the guy who directed Thor 1?
yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know, because Marvel doesn't like styles, apparently, unless it's Joss Whedon. Then, you have complete and utter freedom.
Right. You can do that. They won't let Edgar Wright do anything, but they'll let Joss Whedon, Taika Waititi, and then the Russo brothers do whatever the fuck they want.
Oh, and no, I can assure you there was some restriction.
And then James Gunn.
Yeah, but I can tell that the Russo brothers didn't have complete control, because in one of the new Russo brothers film, they literally have a shot of like a camera shot inside of Tom Holland's anus.
Wow.
Yeah, and they did it. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's there. So yeah.
So you can just have that image in your head. You've seen the inside of Spider-Man's asshole.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That image will be in your head forever.
Yep, it'll never escape me.
Yeah, I relate.
But yeah, so Thor 1. What'd you think?
Well, it was a movie.
It was a movie.
It was a movie that existed, that established Thor, and it established him well enough.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that film was better, though. Like, I do think that there are underrated aspects, but I still believe that the film should have been better. And could have been better.
Right, again, it's the definition of not bad.
Yeah. And that's what, like, holds up Phase 1, I think, is because, other than, like, Iron Man 2, you can't really say the other films are, like, bad,
Right. Right. Even Avengers, which I have my own issues with, is not a terrible movie. Yeah, it's just not bad. Just, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, there you go. Thor 1, we did it. Dun 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 dun.
Oh my god.
And we didn't get sidetracked. Yeah, and we didn't get sidetracked. Yay!
Yeah, holy shit. Well, I think we know what the next one is, and I feel like this is going to be the one where we disagree the most about it.
Okay, cool. So, Captain America 1.
The first Avenger.
Not really technically the first Avenger, but yeah, the first Avenger.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, do you know why I said that?
Why?
Because in Captain Marvel, you don't know because you went to this bitch had 3 eyes, and then you passed out.
Yep. Yeah.
But actually in the film, it's revealed that Captain Marvel was the real first Avenger, and that essentially the Nick Fury got the name Avengers from Carol Danvers' plane. So it said Avenger on it. And then he renamed his initiative to Avengers. And then, yep, she was the first Avenger the whole time. So that title is wrong. So, cool.
Except Captain Marvel was in the 90s, not in World War II.
Nope, that's right.
So he's still a first Avenger.
I guess, nope. But he, like, the name came from her. So technically he's not even the first Avenger because the Avenger name didn't even exist, huh?
Well, the movie likes to think that.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, this is just some fucking. This is just some liberal bullshit with retroactively making Captain Marvel the first Avenger.
Yep.
Ugh. How'd Nick Fury lose his eye? Well, her cat attacked him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very cool.
it's very deep. I swear the MCU sometimes is treating itself like a joke. So.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So okay, let's get into that America patriotism.
So I think you should start by saying what you think about the movie.
Okay. So hold on, let me get it. Close, please, close. Thank you. Okay. So it's simple. It has a sense of progression. I hate the color palette, but honestly, it's fine, I guess. I didn't feel Captain America 1 was that good. It was just... I didn't see as many like holes as I did with like Iron Man 2, or there wasn't like a fundamental issue with Iron Man or Captain America like there was in Iron Man 2, but honestly it's just kind of like really mediocre. The reason why I like Thor is because I think he does a stronger and a better job at like taking a look at a character and like making you kind of root for a character, versus Captain America. As soon as he gets soldiered up, he's kind of just there. He's like, all he does is just the normal things. And it's really funny because in the first 20 minutes of the film, he's like portrayed as like an awkward kid, doesn't really get along, has no friends. Even when he tries to flirt with girls, it goes terribly. But all of a sudden, once he gets his body like ripped, all that goes out the window. All like the social awkward stuff, that's all out the window, which I don't think that's how that works, unless it suddenly made him into an alpha male, that serum, I guess. But overall, it was just kind of fine. I didn't hate it. I can understand if people hated it. I just don't understand why people could like it, considering it really doesn't have a lot. And that too, and Bucky is a character that we're kind of supposed to care about, and there's not a lot of character development for him. By the time he gets into Winter Soldier, it kind of feels like, oh yeah, it's that guy. So, okay.
I was actually surprised when like it was revealed in Winter Soldier, like, it's Bucky. I was like, what? Oh, that guy was important?
Yeah.
He was an actual character that I was supposed to remember? Okay, sure. Also, I'm noticing a pattern here where you really don't like muted color palettes.
Yeah, I don't like muted color palettes. Color palettes that okay, to be fair, there is a way to have like a darker scheme to make things like look like a movie, obviously. Like you can tone down the saturation, but I still feel in like this is more of a personal thing, but I like to see colors that stand out personally, or good use of colors. A good example of this would be Joker. I think it has a very good sense of having everything kind of dark, but also having a good sense of color. That's kind of like the perfect range that I want things. If it's too overexposed like Avengers and Justice League, then yeah, I'm going to dislike it just as much as the other guy. But if it's just as dark and doesn't have as much of a color palette, similar to how Zack Snyder's with like colors really don't stand out unless it's like effects. It really just honestly hurts either way. I'm somewhere in between of like both extremes. So
Interesting. Very interesting. So I like Captain America, the first Avenger. I mean, again, it's not great, and there are issues with it, and we will definitely talk about those issues. But like, I don't know. I feel like I went into Thor expecting to not like it, and I came out of it going, yeah, that's not bad. And then I went into Captain America, and I did, and even on rewatching it, I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to be that good. And then both in the theater and on rewatching it, I came out of it going like, yeah, that was fine. It was good. Like, I still think Iron Man 1 is the best one. Iron Man 2 is definitely by far the worst one, and like way worse than any of the other ones. Like if we were to rank them, there would be a giant gap in quality between the second worst and then Iron Man 2. I think. For me, like, I don't know. I can get why people don't like it. Do people just like overall don't like that movie, or like is there like a general consensus on it, or just no one remember it?
I think it's mostly due to the fact that I think a lot of people have high standards when it comes to Captain America, due to like Winter Soldier, like being one of the best MCU films, and then Civil War also doing really good as well. There's like a lot of pressure on the Captain America like trilogy, and the first one in terms of like comparing it to like the best of the best doesn't quite hold up, and that's why I think most people dislike it. Personally, that's not why I dislike it. I dislike it because it was just there, and it didn't seem to give me much in terms of like character. But yeah, and okay. So another reason why I think I dislike it is because with an origin film, you kind of have to go through a lot of the same steps, and that's why a lot of people are sick of origin films, is that you kind of have to go through a step to like make sure your character has like a proper arc of like how he becomes a hero, and I felt that bumbled in Captain America way more than it did like in Thor, for example, because I felt like Thor was while simple, it made a lot of sense in terms of like getting the character to understand the character to properly set up for the rest of the movies, blah, 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 even if it's to be worthy or whatever. Captain America, I felt just after the 20-minute mark, then is just kind of stuck that way. And because it's an origin film, it hurts the film overall. So anyway, here, I'll let you talk more.
Well, I would venture to say that it's not even 20 minutes into the movie that he becomes the same. He is the same the second that you see him to the end of the movie.
Oh, I'm talking specifically about his physical struggle.
Well, right, but that's not like okay. Like this is why I fundamentally disagree with the idea. Whenever, of course, this is going to turn into a tangent. But this is why I fundamentally disagree with the idea. Whenever people start bitching about Superman, and they go, "Look at Captain America. Everyone likes the Captain America movies. He's fine. Just do that." Here's the issue: is that Captain America has no character at all. He is, in personality-wise, basically flawless. Even like his social awkwardness is treated like something that is in his favor, right? Because he's not womanizing, right? Because whenever we see Bucky, he's always like trying to hit on girls and blah blah blah, and he's kind of treated as kind of like chauvinistic in a way. And then we see awkward, scrawny, weird Steve, who is just a nice guy, right? And like he is so wanting to fight bad guys and so wanting to go into the army and so like what do you do with that character? The only thing that you can do is make him as far as him becoming a super soldier, is just make him buff. And then after that, his only flaw, being his physical stature, is then fixed. And then there is nothing that you can do with that character anymore. If Iron Man and, like, Thor are two-dimensional in that they basically have, like, they're just hero character but with one singular flaw, like the fatal character flaw of Iron Man being that he's kind of reckless and, like, selfish, and Thor being that he's, like, arrogant and takes his power for granted. Like, Captain America is one-dimensional because he is just, I am the good guy. And that, like, persists, I think, not just in this movie, but it persists throughout, I would say, almost every movie that Captain America is involved in. Captain America never has really anything interesting to do in any of these movies, even in Winter Soldier. And Winter Soldier was good, but that was, I think, because of everything outside of Captain America. And this is why I get really, like, tired of hearing people start talking about how, look at Captain America, they could do, like, Captain America's doing Superman better than Superman is. It's like, yeah, if you want Superman to be a fucking cardboard cutout that is paper thin and just is there doing nothing interesting at all whatsoever, then sure, I guess you could do that. But I would rather him be something interesting. And, like, I think it's weird how I started out saying that I like this movie and then just, like, completely shit on it.
Yeah, I know.
But,
You completely, I'm, like, confused. I'm like, yes? No? Wait, what?
but, like, and, like, I'm not even sure. I feel like I'm in the position that you were with Thor. With Thor, I was like, it was fine. But, like, for me, I'm like, I guess I liked it, but it wasn't really because it did anything good. It just wasn't bad. I mean, here's the thing. So with Thor, I was mainly bored. And I was not bored with Captain America. There was enough flashing lights, I guess, to keep me awake. So
Just like an infant. Wow, entertained by the keys in front of him.
yeah, well, look, that's what they're going for with these Marvel movies, okay? So at least they're giving me that.
Yeah, that's true.
But, like, that's their goal. They're not aiming for anything higher than that. But it's just like there's something that I appreciate about, like, the classicness of, like how he feels like a very, not a modern superhero, right? He feels very much like a superhero from, like, the 30s and 40s. There's something that I think is interesting about that, and I do like kind of like the weird retro future shit with, like, the technology and stuff. I think that's, like, interesting in kind of like a Wolfenstein the New Order Rocketeer kind of way. Like, there's, like, little pieces that I enjoy, like, kind of on their own. But it's, again, like, all of the things that I enjoy about the movie are kind of separate from Captain America, or only very marginally have anything to do with him. Because, again, like, he isn't a character. Like, you know, like, I don't know why people are so fucking attached to this character, or constantly talking about how Superman needs to be more like them. Like, to me, it's like, oh, so you want him to be, like, boring and stagnant forever with nothing to do, and honestly, really nothing to stand for, because all Captain America ever talks about is just, I fight bad guys. It's not even that he, like, even in like the modern ones, he's not politically minded. Like, nothing, like in Civil War, nothing that he does is in any way, like, political. It's just, Bucky is my friend. And then, like, in Winter Soldier, it's just, oh, I gotta fight these new bad guys. Like, I don't even, like, as much as people like to talk about how how Winter Soldier was, like, morally complex, I don't feel like there's any point where Captain America was actually, like, questioning anything. He just realizes, oh, these guys are secretly bad guys, and then punches them, and then that's the movie. And, like, I feel like Captain America is the worst offender of this problem, but I feel like this is the problem that all of the Marvel characters specifically suffer from. Is that like I said about like Iron Man or Thor, is like once you have the origin arc, like they're stuck there. That was their character arc, and now they just exist as Iron Man or as Thor or as Doctor Strange or Black Panther or whatever. And here it's almost worse because he doesn't even do anything to get to that point. He just is, and then he continues to be.
Okay, so a lot of this, as I've seemed to understand from a lot of the stuff that you're telling me, seems to be that you're not necessarily frustrated or like the movie in and of itself. It seems to me like, okay, this is going to sound like super like offensive, but trust me, don't take this too seriously. I'm reading it as like a critical state of mind. You seem to be frustrated with the fact of how Winter Soldier and Civil War are praised, but you feel like there's a lot of flaws within those movies, specifically with Captain America's characters, that can be said for a lot of Marvel characters in general. So once you go back to the first Avenger and you see that not many people are liking the first Avenger, even though he seems to be having that same issue, you still like that film because it's not like the other films we're talking like Winter Soldier, Civil War.
All right. Well, yes, in a way, I would agree with that because like I hear so many times about like whenever I say like, oh my god, Marvel can't ever seem to take anything seriously, everyone goes, but Winter Soldier was Civil War, and they always point to Captain America specifically, and it's like, well, no, because they don't take that. Like a shield secretly being taken over by Hydra has no weight behind it. It just supplies Captain America with new bad guys to punch in the face. Like the Avengers being dissolved again doesn't have any real like stakes or anything behind it. It's just, okay, now he's going to punch other Avengers, I guess. Like, and again, he still character-wise is right in the same spot where he started. But those two movies, the later Captain America movies, are trying to pretend that like they're doing something to shake up the status quo or doing something to shake his beliefs or his foundation when they're not. And people praise them for doing that when they don't. But like, and to me, what made Captain America's lack of character acceptable was that they were kind of doing this like hokey ass, like it's World War II, like kind of shit, you know? Like the fact that Captain America is impossibly good and that one-dimensional, I felt kind of worked being this like old-timey, throwbacky, like oh my god, like World War II, kind of shit. And like again, like The Rocketeer, literally is this the same director who did Cap 1 did The Rocketeer. And that was that kind of movie in a similar vein where it was this very deliberately pulpy, simplistic, good guy gets a rocket pack and then uses it to punch the Nazis kind of thing. And like in that kind of very specific kind of kitsch, it works. But then once you take that same character, plant him into the much more morally complex world, and have him remain the same, and then tell me that the movie is morally gray and super serious when it really isn't, is what I think is really frustrating.
Okay, so how do I guess I address that properly without, So I understand, but it seems to, a lot of the stuff that you come down to don't really seem to be about the movie itself. It's mostly into a retrospective on how you think about the Captain America, how Captain America the character is, and you feel like the first Avenger is a good example of this, but it works to that extent because it works with the setting that it's in and the type of movie that it is as well. Am I getting that right?
Oh, right. Well, and even when I first saw Captain America, like that's why I thought it worked, was because they set this like hokey ass character in a time period where that would feel more in line with it, right? Like it was the fact that it was this weird like kitschy World War II movie that I felt like Captain America's character worked, and I expected going forward from seeing the first Avenger, like, okay, this is establishing how, upright and moral he is, and how that is totally fine when, you're dealing with fucking Nazis. And then I'm assuming that later on we're going to see his ideas and philosophies challenged. And then that doesn't happen.
Okay, so it's been a long time since I've seen Winter Soldier or Civil War, but I think I have enough knowledge about them frequently to kind of address the criticisms. Do you want me to take a shot?
Sure.
Okay, so the Winter Soldier specifically is essentially the idea that, okay, do you fundamentally agree with the idea that in Captain America 1 it is basically about him and his patriotism, right?
Right.
In the government and all that.
It's vaguely patriotic. It's less focused on how much he loves America and what America stands, or at least wanted to stand for in World War II, and more just him generically saying that he doesn't like bullies, which is also a weird thing because they try to weirdly depoliticize Captain America, which is kind of weird for a guy who's named after a country.
Yeah. So, Winter Soldier essentially takes the idea of his patriotism and ideas and essentially puts that under scrutiny. What happens when, like, the government's involvement comes too far? And especially considering this is at a point in time where he thought the government kind of did no wrong because he always kind of believed in the idea of, like, government and America and all that. Once he sees that, they're using their technology to spy on other people, the very fact that the whole system's kind of corrupt, I think... I don't know. Considering all of the themes that are in this film and a lot of the ways that it challenges Captain America, I think that if you rewatched it, I think you would actually really like it.
Mm.
I know...
Well, I mean, it might be part of the... I mean, it is kind of part of the whole point of me rewatching these fucking movies is to revisit some of the ones that I was too harsh on and see some of the ones that I missed. And it has been a while since I've seen Winter Soldier. But here's the thing that I think undercuts that, is that in Winter Soldier, all of the corruption in the government is placed on Hydra. So then all of a sudden that idea of, oh my God, maybe the government isn't as good as I thought it was, maybe my patriotism is misplaced, blah, 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 is now turned into, oh, it's my old nemesis Hydra at it again. And it's not really America's fault or the government's fault. It's that it's being taken over by these assholes.
Well, it's still technically America's fault for letting a lot of these people in the first place and letting them adapt to the culture, don't you think so?
True, in a pedantic sense, but it would be much more interesting if they didn't decide to go, oh, it was Hydra. If it was just that Captain America just didn't agree with what they were doing, that would make a lot more sense than, oh, it's secretly the Nazis again.
Yeah, but
because
a
again,
lot of these people...
that takes it from being a morally complex issue and just turns it into, there's the bad guys.
You don't think that there's any subtext about the government and its, like, control over people and all of that?
There is very, very on-the-nose subtext, but again, it's the fact... the thing that it comes down to is that it's not that Captain America doesn't agree with what America is doing. He is disagreeing with the covert Hydra op going on. And it takes it away from the idea of maybe the government just isn't doing what is right. It kind of takes the responsibility of that away from them. And again, puts it on these convenient bad guys who we already dislike. If it was just, if there was no Hydra involved and it was just that, the American government was overstepping its boundaries and spying on people and blah, 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 and Captain America had to struggle with what did he, how did he feel about that, that would be much different and more interesting, albeit with less punching, than if it was, oh my God, it was Hydra. like fucking Scooby-Doo, like, who's under the mask? Oh, I was Hydra the whole time.
Yep. Okay, so I would say that
It's a very simplistic and reductive way to take on that concept. Is what I will say.
Okay, the reason why I think that it's important to like in the Winter Soldier sense of why it's like that, and why I think that this kind of counters what you were saying about like it's all Hydra's fault, is that I think Captain America, especially in the time of the first Avenger, he kind of believed in this idea that the government could do no wrong, that America, wasn't corruptible and that he couldn't be just like them. But it turns out that Hydra is a part of the government and then is like challenged that belief. Is it 100% correct? No. Should it have been just the government in of itself? Yeah, sure. I would say that, but I'd say that more comes down to how that is when it comes down to like Civil War. I think Civil War takes that next step. Well, I say the themes that you're thinking about are like the next step after. And I think it's taking like a slow way to approach like the form of patriotism and like the way of how he thinks about things and all that, and his ideals and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I still think all the things that you said, I still think that you would enjoy Winter Soldier more than you think.
Well, again, we'll have to see when we rewatch that. And what I would counter that with is that in Captain America 1, again, sure, if you could make the argument that, yeah, sure, Captain America just thinks that the government can do no wrong, except for the fact that he is very, very much depoliticized in Captain America 1. I forget what they were talking about at the time, but it was like, I don't care who's from where, I just don't like bullies, or something like that. Like, they actively try to take the idea of nationalism and government and blah, blah, blah out of it and make him just, I don't like bad guys in Captain America 1. And on top of that, a lot of Captain America 1 is frustrated with the U.S. government.
But the bad guys,
he could do more than what he is doing currently.
But the bad guys in this case are Hydra, and that's seen as anti-patriotic when it comes to fighting them. So I think that while he may not say boldly that, oh, yeah, America, that's right, I think that he very clearly hints at the fact that the enemies are the bad guys, which are the Nazis, and we fight against the Nazis because we're America and we're better. Like, even the way that you set it up as, like, kind of Rocketeer-esque and it takes place in that timeline, in and of itself kind of makes it overly patriotic in a sense.
Sure, but that's the rest of the movie, not Captain America. Captain America is in that scene saying, it's literally just saying, I don't like bad guys. Then the point of that scene is him saying that it goes beyond government or nationality, that it is a moral thing. And again, he is often in conflict with most of the government officials in Captain America 1.
That's only because
they won't let him do what he wants. They won't let him do any real good. Yeah. And so if it was that, well, okay, the government's doing this and this, he was just a kind of slave to the government, he wouldn't have just decided, well, fuck all this, I'm going to go hijack a fucking plane with like Tony Stark's dad and go do this shit myself.
As we keep on going,
I feel like his patriotism is very weakly set up. It's at best very loosely implied, and it's mainly by the fact that he's named Captain America.
Okay, so this sounds like a problem with the first film. Is that correct?
Sure.
So,
but it's mainly a problem that, well, okay, what it is that it's a problem in terms of trying to prop up the sequels as his faith in the government being questioned, because that is not set up at all. He is basically just a swashbuckling action hero in the first movie.
I think so, and that kind of plays into what you're saying, correct? about like it
Right.
being a hokey part of the 40s and whatever, right?
Right?
Okay, I still don't see how necessarily you all of a sudden like First Soldier now. This seems like mostly just a reaction to what you feel about Winter Soldier and Civil War, or at least what people are saying about Winter Soldier and Civil War.
Again, I'm not, first of all, I've never been much of a Captain America fan in the first place. So I don't know. I was honestly, when I first saw it, I was kind of glad that they didn't harp on America, because I think when that came out, I was very much in my fuck America kind of phase, which I still am in, I suppose. So I guess it's not really a phase. But I was glad that they took him away from being from being just a political figure into being, I just don't like bad guys. That's fine. I liked that he was part of the kitschy 40s thing and doing the Rocketeer shit. Fine. The problem is, like, and that's why I think that movie worked. The problem is that then they don't actually do anything with the follow-ups.
Wait, okay, so not a minute ago, but a few recordings ago, you essentially agreed to the idea that the character doesn't really, for the sequel at least, doesn't need to focus on the film as long as everything else surrounds it is really good. In this case, we talked about The Dark Knight. Do you think that that applies to Winter Soldier or Civil War?
If they were talking about how, if they were talking directly about like Bucky or something, like overwhelming Captain America and being a more formidable foe than he's ever faced, and like the only guy who could catch the shield and shit, then yeah, I could agree with that. In that way, him fighting Bucky and Bucky being kind of an actual threat to Cap is Dark Knight-esque, and I could agree with that. But a lot of the praise that it gets is trying to say that Captain America is being questioned and challenged, which he isn't.
But this sounds like, yet again, an issue with just the criticism rather than, like, the movies that you're talking about here.
Well, I would also say that no movie is released in a vacuum.
I know, I understand. I've been through that argument before, and I do agree with that you can't just necessarily view things in a vacuum, but I don't think that that's, like, most of the time, I don't think that that's, like, the number one thing that gets brought up about Winter Soldier. I think a lot of people bring up the fact that it's a villain or, like, a spy thriller, or that it's more interesting than a lot of the typical MCU stuff, you know?
Well, maybe we're just talking to different people, because all I ever hear is that it's morally gray and it's super serious and Captain America feels questioned and blah, 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 and that's nothing that I ever get out of that movie. And again, I feel like what the elements that surround Captain America's one-dimensional ass made the first movie work in that specific instance. But once you take that same character out, put him in a completely different time period, and change all the other shit, that's when I think it falls apart. And that's when the inherent flaw of his character, which, yes, is a flaw in the first movie. It was something that, on rewatching it, I did not like. Which is why I'm not saying that it's great. But it's the things around him that I think make up for it and make that movie work better than the sequels.
Okay. But as its own movie, do you agree that, like, it's kind of just average?
Well, yes, I would say it's probably, to me, if I had to give it a rating, it'd be like a 6.5, maybe a 7 if I was feeling particularly generous.
Okay. Because my score would be like a 5 out of 10.
Well, again, I feel like this is more the reverse situation of you and Thor. And
yeah,
then,
kind of.
and
But at least, like, other than, like, the setting that you've mentioned so far about that you liked, and that how the character kind of fits in that world, it doesn't, like, with Thor, I think that it could work in any kind of environment, because, like, the characters about, like, Loki's story, and how, like, America, God, but how Thor came to being as Thor and all this other stuff, I still think that while it does better in its own version, in its own, like, world, it can all be done across, like, a lot of other stories as well. And that's, like, the difference, is because it sounds like to me, if this wasn't campy or hokey like a 40s movie or whatever, it sounds like it wouldn't be nearly as good at all And that's what you're trying to mention about Winter
right.
Soldier.
That's what I'm saying. Well, and I again, it comes down to the other elements. Like, I liked the visual style. I liked the action scenes and the kind of like in some sequences almost Indiana Jones esque like adventure shit, and all of those aspects of it, I thought were very like again kind of just like a classic kind of adventure movie, right? And in that way, it felt more acceptable that Captain America had like zero character. Because like take for example some like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones has no character. He never has like arcs or like learns anything. He just is there to partake in adventure shenanigans. And in that kind of scenario, Captain America worked much more than I think in the like weird like Jason Bourne political thriller lens that the later two decided to go on. And I think it's those again like those Rocketeer Indiana Jones-esque qualities of it that I really enjoyed and made it a lot easier for me to look past the fact that he is so goddamn one-dimensional.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you agree to the issue that the protagonist is like doesn't really have New York or has issues, you feel like it's suddenly acceptable if it's like in a different setting.
Right. Well, like in terms of like it's because it's the context that surrounds the character, and I think that in it like that the context of the story matters a lot to how good that character works within that story.
Okay. I just think
Because
that,
like again, like if your character is I punch bad guys, setting it in World War II where we have the most like cartoonish, one-dimensional, easily definable bad guy and having him go on adventure shit to go punch them, sure, that works.
yeah. But why about that context doesn't make it work when he's in Winter Soldier? And okay, so I don't want to flat out make up stuff, and I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves, considering we haven't seen both of the movies that we're talking about like in a long time. Um, it's not that our assessments are necessarily wrong. I just feel like it'll be a lot better when we actually rewatch the film, and that way we know all the other context surrounding the film and like the cinematography and music and all the other factors that it takes when, making a film and all that. But why is it that can't work in the setting that Winter Soldier and Civil War is in?
Because you still have him being the same kind of campy, one-dimensional, like cardboard cutout, placing him inside a very different context with a very different set of like ideas going on. And like I feel like having the idea simply existing next to the character, right? Having the very vague idea of Hydra is in control of S.H.I.E.L.D., therefore we're trying to talk about how the government's corrupt now, and that is existing somewhere in the idea of Captain America does not mean that his ideas are being challenged. To me, he is like that character worked in the campy context of World War II action hero. But taking that same character, it'd be like taking Indiana Jones out of what, like, being in the 40s hunting treasure and then having him be in a fucking James Bond movie. Or like, so like, or just put him in a Jason Bourne movie and then you're like, this feels weird.
Okay, well, the thing is that I was going to bring up that I don't necessarily know for sure, but I feel like when I watched the Winter Soldier and Civil War that this was different a different Captain America in a way. It's not because of like an arc per se, but it's because they molded him into fitting into that environment. But I can't say for sure because like I said, I haven't watched the film in a while. But I'm pretty sure I remember Captain America in that version being more grounded, and adjust to the setting a lot more. But like I said, I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. That's why I don't feel comfortable carrying on this conversation like this because I could like rewatch the film and be completely wrong, and I don't want to make myself back in that position again like I've done multiple times before, and I'm really uncomfortable doing that. So
Are you telling me ever not that you're wanting to avoid collateral damage to Electric Boogaloo?
yes, basically. You may laugh at that, but that was like a serious moment for me when it came to like the way how I think about things is because if I try to make logical assessments over things that I don't really know, I end up making myself looking really stupid. And recently, when I had a debate over that Tom McDonald stuff, I brought up implicit bias, and essentially this one guy commented on the debate and said, dude, there's not a lot of science that actually supports implicit bias when it comes to like systemic racism. And there's like forms of bias, but it's not such thing as like an implicit bias or like the way that you can't really like take control of it or do anything about it really, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I got into like this whole other rabbit hole of like how implicit bias works, and it made me kind of like rethink, the positions that I take because like I said, even with the collateral damage thing too, I don't feel comfortable with trying to take a position that I don't 100% know about only to correct myself in the future and making me feel like, an idiot afterwards.
Well, that's fair enough. For me, I feel like, well, as evidenced by the video titled "James Issues a Formal Apology to Zack Snyder," I am more than comfortable with finding out new information and eating my words. So if I watch Winter Soldier, even though I feel very confident in my position now, if I watch Winter Soldier and I come out of it going, "Fuck, I was wrong about that movie," what, the things that I was saying about it weren't true. Then when we come back and talk about Winter Soldier, I will own up to that and say that, you know what, I fucked up. I was wrong. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. To me, I think being wrong or coming back with new information later isn't a complete sign of failure. It is a sign that you are willing to learn and grow and develop further.
Okay, let me kind of clarify what I meant by that. When I'm talking specifically, me being wrong is not necessarily the problem. It's the very fact that I didn't choose to do my research about a said thing, and I pushed something that later I don't agree with down the line. And I think that that's really harmful, especially when it comes to like politics and stuff, that if I haven't done the research on, and I commit to something that I really shouldn't be committing to that's not even right because I didn't do the proper research, I see that as a huge flaw with myself, like as a person.
All right. And sure, I feel the lesson for that is, like you said, doing more research, right? But I don't know. I feel like I'm very fine if I come back later, and I think part of that is that I have a very readily available opportunity later to correct myself if need be, that I'm comfortable taking the stance that I am, where I'm like, because again, this is all based on what I remember watching, which was years ago. So again, if it's different and I come back with a different, and I feel like, oh fuck, I totally got that wrong. I feel like there is definitely a platform for me to come back and go, right, I was wrong. I said some dumb shit. This is, on the rewatch, this is what I feel. And with politics, I feel it's a much more serious thing because you're not just talking about like fucking cape shit.
Yeah.
So I feel like I feel like I'm at much more of a liberty to say something that I can then retract and amend later because it's cape shit, and I know that we're going to talk about phase 2.
Yeah, I guess so.
But sure. if you don't want to continue this part of the discussion, and again, I don't feel it's like this is more of a debate. I feel like it's just talking.
Yeah, no, it's not
About
necessarily a debate thing. Like I said, it's just like I feel morally obligated to like make sure I try and do the proper research on before like I make an argument that could, like I know that like TV shows and stuff, and it's more okay to be all right with that. But I feel like if I make the exception to that with movies and TV, then I'm willing to cross the line when it comes to like political things as well. It's like the no kill rule. Once you kill once, you get a taste that you might like it or whatever, whatever.
Oh, right. Well, I guess so. For me, even with politics, I've had very, very like bold stances of like this is bullshit, this is not real, you know. And then I've learned things that have made me pronounce that, like even with like the BLM shit over last summer, right? That was a moment for me going like, oh fuck, no, there is still actual like racist issues going on still, and you know, truth to all the shit that people have been saying, and I'm just turning the other way. And for me, I just am growing comfortable with the idea that I'm going to look stupid eventually, and so it's accepting that, admitting it, and moving on is what I've learned from that situation.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think it just comes down to the person, really.
Yeah, Captain America, it is a way to kill an afternoon. I feel like that's what most of these Marvel movies are in Phase 1.
Yeah.
I would also say that I have a sort of bias towards Captain America's particular style because I really enjoy that particular kind of camp. Like very gaudy looking, kind of cheap, like with that weird color palette and like the weird sci-fi tech inside World War II and like goofy villains with weird like makeup.
The color palette seemed completely weird though. Like most of which of the color palette in Marvel's like look overlit, but like it's not necessarily overlit. It's like got this like muddled gray brownish look to it, which doesn't really make sense for like a film that's supposed to like be about the 40s and something. That just struck me as very off.
So for me, what I liked about that color palette is that it's very underlit. You're right. It has a lot of grays and browns and muted colors. But to me, what I like about it and what I could see people not liking about it is that when they do want to emphasize something, it is fucking way more colorful than everything else in the area. Like, and I think to me that adds to a little bit of like the kickiness to it. It reminds me of shit like Sin City or The Spirit, but less extreme, where it's like there's kind of a grayish mid-tone to everything, but then when Red Skull takes off his fake face and he's got his Red Skull on, that is fucking red, or like when the little plasma beams and shit go off, like it is blindingly blue.
Oh yeah, it blinds you all right, that's for sure.
All right, but it's like I think it's an interesting choice to have like those specific colors when used be so much more vibrant than the rest of the movie, and as a way to like highlight it in a way. And I think that's an interesting way to go. I can see why people wouldn't like it, but it was something that I thought was an interesting choice, something that I liked.
Okay, so first Avenger for you give it like a 6.5, and if you're really feeling good that day, you give it a 7. Personally, for me, I give it a 5 out of 10. It's very average. Oh, let's actually rate the past films that we didn't actually get to rate, just in case.
Okay. So, did we rate Iron Man 1?
No, we didn't rate Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, or Thor, I don't think.
Okay. Iron Man 1. I'll give it a 7. Like I said, like a solid. And then Iron Man 2 is a skip out of 10. Thor is like a 6. Yeah. And then First Avenger is a 6.5.
Hold on, I'm just writing this down. Wait, you said 7.5 or 6.5?
6.5 for Captain America.
And you gave Thor 6 out of 10, right?
Just a 6. And Iron Man is a 7.
Cool. Okay. So I may change my ratings, but I'm generally going to stick to Iron Man 1. I do agree it's either a 7 or like a 7.5 for me. That one makes the most sense. Iron Man 2 is... Oh, you didn't get to rate your Hulk. What's your rating on that one?
For the MCU Hulk,
Yeah, the MCU Hulk and the original Hulk.
MCU Hulk will probably get a 5. And Ang Lee's Hulk, I will give a 7.5, probably to an 8. Yeah, well, fuck that. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's goofy and weird, and there are parts of it that are stupid, but it actually tries to do something interesting with the Hulk character, which is more than I can say for the MCU one. So.
Sure. Okay, so Iron Man 1 for me is a 7.5. Whoa, okay. That's not what I wanted to do.
Aw, shit.
Iron Man 2, it's either like a 3 or a 4, honestly. Yeah, 3 seems fair. 3. It's not that good at all. Ugh.
Yikes.
Thor, I gave it a 6, just like you. Captain America, I gave a 5. And we haven't rated Avengers 1 yet, which, speaking of which, can I split up the recording? And then we get to talk about Avengers. And then you can talk about Lion King, I can talk about Mulan, and then we close it out with what your thoughts on the Evil Dead series, right?
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Alright, it's ready for installment 3095 of Casey and James Shit on Marvel. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Avengers 1. Tell me what you thought.
Avengers 1. I have conflicting feelings about it. On the one hand, I'm like, it's inoffensively bad. Or not inoffensively bad. It's not offensively bad. But it's also kind of, you were kind of right in saying that, like, it was Avengers 1 specifically that started the trend of, like, Marvel being, like, overly jokey and having no stakes and, like, nothing, like, really meaning anything. Because while, you know, the other ones did have lighthearted moments, it wasn't, like a constant verbal diarrhea of just, like, quick, joke, like, until the movie ended. That you were right that it definitely starts with Avengers 1 specifically.
Yep.
And it was kind of like the part of it. And then also it's just like it sort of is like with Infinity War and Endgame where they work as the, like, wrap up to this part of the overall Marvel storyline, but, like, as a movie just by itself, it's like, it reminds me of, like, Battle of the Five Armies or, like, Matrix Revolutions, where it's just like, here is just one big ass battle for, like, 2 hours, which is just kind of like.
Oh, actually, okay, to be fair though, in Avengers 1, when you mentioned big ol' fight, I have seen a film that does this way worse.
What movie is that?
That is a movie called Justice League War.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's
Is that like that's the animated movie, right?
Yep. And the thing about Justice League War is that I'm actually trying to make a video on it. Trying to, because sometimes I have my passion, sometimes I don't. But whatever. The film overall isn't necessarily the source material, because Jeff Johns' writing is pretty alright. And Jim Lee did the artwork. So you think that both of these two people, when they, collaborate for like a source material, is good. And for the most part, it is good. But the thing is that when it actually takes into movie form, it doesn't seem to understand the differences between the two, because number one, Jim Lee's artwork isn't carried over into Justice League War, and Jeff Johns' writing, the point of Justice League War, or as it's called in the comic Justice League Origins, was that it was supposed to set up for Darkseid War. That was the big, tie-in. But in Justice League War, once it's done, it just kind of stops. Then it's like, oh, movie over. And the thing about Justice League War that is kind of interesting when I compare it to like a lot of other superhero movies is that Justice League War, once you get to like past 1/3 of it, it is just non-stop action. There is no breath of air that can be taken. It is just action, 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 action. Rush to the next plot point. Next plot point. Now we're Cyborg. This is the Flash. Superman. Superman and Wonder Woman. Superman and Wonder Woman. Now it's Batman and Green Lantern. And this is the Flash. Back to the Cyborg. Like, it is unnerving. So, to be fair, in Avengers 1, it's not the worst, like, type of crammy action I've seen, but yeah, it still is annoying.
It's, right. Well, it's like, and it's also kind of like, I don't know, there's something that does in a weird way feel like kind of hollow about it, when it's just like, here's like 2 hours of like bunch of punching and like really like B-grade quips, and then like it all amounts to like, sometimes it's good to make friends, like that's what this is about, and they're just like, okay, sure, great, you know.
Yeah, so let's where do I
like it would be just, I don't know, it would just be it would be the weird frustrating thing is like, it would be disingenuous if I said that I hated it, because I don't. It's like, it's fine, but it's like the most aggressively fine movie in Phase 1, I think.
Yeah. I'd say even First Avenger has some things over Avengers 1. Because at least it wasn't like constant like, oh, quit! 24/7 quit machine here! And it's like,
Oh, right.
go away.
For real. It's just... And it is like with retrospect where you're like, where it is just like, wow, this is it. Patient zero for just Marvel just making crap. Oof.
Yeah, and I think why... It's funny because some people, like, legitimately on Twitter would rank Avengers 1 the best Avengers movie and one of the best MCU movies. But when I go back and watch Avengers 1, I see a lot of, like, issues and problems that would become later down the line just done somewhat better in Avengers 1, if not so, like, kind of hidden and put it, like, a different paint on it. That makes you say, yeah, that's not bad. But, like, looking on closer inspection, it's why some of the MCU has so much issues. And like I said, like you mentioned before, it's the humor is what starts in Avengers 1. That type of humor comes from Avengers 1. It's not any other really movie, because Iron Man, it was more of just specific to his character, while Avengers 1, it's like that's where the quips come from, and that's why it can be so annoying in all the other movies as well.
All right, it's like all of a sudden well, it's also because like Joss has like the writer's equivalent of like single face syndrome, where like artists can only ever draw like one face over and over and over, and he's kind of got that to where all of his characters to a certain degree just start sounding the same with how quippy they are. They have the same kind of quips, they have the same energy to them. He just is writing like 6 different versions of the same character.
Yeah.
In that movie.
Yeah, even though they're all acted differently, they all, like, you're not going to hear different kinds of quips from Captain America or Thor or Iron Man, they all relatively make the same amount of quips in the same way.
Right.
He's not even taking the chemistry that they could have and then making that different.
Right, exactly. He's not writing them as Captain America, like, or well, I guess it would be on like a very, very superficial level. Like, Captain America's old, so he gets what Wizard of Oz is, right? Or like Thor doesn't like his brother, so he's gonna make an adoption joke. You know, like it's just like it's the most like basic like understanding of any of these characters and their personalities. And like I can see why it would be people's favorite MCU movie because it is to me a definition of a it is like the textbook definition of a crowd pleaser movie. And I don't mean that in like a very good way because it's just like, yeah, it's hollow and safe and it's got colors everywhere and then there's fighting and punching and then everything's good at the end and then, oh, purple guy. The end. You know, see you in a decade. But like, you know, it's just, and again, like, you know, it's like, and I get it. I get this argument every single time I criticize this, like this movie and the Marvel movies in general. It's like it doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to like be like, and it's like you're right, but it's also just like so nakedly obvious that it's just like jingling keys in front of my face. You know.
Actually, one way to come back to that argument is how deep it is. The good example of this would be, not necessarily an example, but the best way I can put that is like just because, yes, it can work if it isn't deep, but if it isn't deep, it's not as good as it could have been. Does that make sense?
Well, right. It's just like, yeah, it's fine, but it could have been better. But because it's fine, and because people like that it's fine and inoffensive, it's something that you can just watch and forget about in a few minutes, then all of a sudden they get mad at you for saying like, hey, couldn't it have been like better? Which is also the welcome to James starts dunking on Marvel fans now. But like that's what I don't understand is like I don't understand why people are so aggressive in defending how like fucking mediocre these movies are. Like, and I bring this up one with Avengers 1 specifically because whenever you seem to point out, like, dude, this, like, movie has, like, fucking nothing going on. And, like, it's just, like, the absolute bare minimum and the most surface level. Then they go, and they start getting mad at you for criticizing that and, like, defending why it's so fucking shallow. Right? It's not just like, yeah, it's shallow, but I like it. They go, no, you're wrong. That's a and like they get actively pissed off, and it's bizarre to me the like vehement like defense of the aggressive mediocrity.
Yeah, I don't know why people specifically defend Avengers 1 like, I'd say that there's more, like, okay, so to be fair, to defend, like, Captain America 1 or, like, Thor 1 or Iron Man, those make sense to me. Even though I think Captain America is an average movie, but at least it's, like, got something different and unique to its setting, while Avengers 1 is just literally, like you said, it's a crowd pleaser. It's nothing really going on. It's just being a crowd pleaser. It's just being the most bare minimum superhero type of movie you could have ever gone with.
Right. And it's like I get in a way where it's like, well, this is the first time that they did that and like they, you know, maybe they didn't know that it was going to work or whatever. Maybe they wanted to do like a really simple, safe story because they were worried about having all of these different characters in it. Sure. Maybe. And that's fine. But I don't think that excuses it being so fucking shallow and like just one-dimensional, you know? And like you said, like with the other movies, except for Iron Man 2, like you said, there's something like interesting about them, right?
like, even if I feel like the fish out of water storyline for Thor is very like a kind of well played out archetypal story, it's still something that separates Thor's movie from Captain America and from Iron Man, right? It's still something that is specific to that movie, and it's something that like you can discuss, right? You can discuss Captain America's one-dimensionalness, or like the setting, or even the color palette, or the art style, or whatever. You can talk about the performances in Iron Man. Like, what is there honestly to talk about with Avengers 1?
There's only one thing to talk about. One main and only thing. Them coming together. That is literally the only purpose of this film, really.
Right, is that there they are, on the screen at the same time. Awesome! Like, Jesus. And, you know, like, as much as I get tired of people harping on about, like, Infinity War and Purple Man get the space rocks, like, I felt like at least there's, like, something interesting going on with Purple Man getting the space rocks, you know? Where you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think that they would do that. I didn't think that they would try and flesh out Thanos as much as they did. You know, I didn't think it would be that threatening and imposing. It's interesting to see, you know, these kind of unlikely team-ups with, like, Doctor Strange and Iron Man, you know, or, like, Captain America and Black Panther and shit. Just, like, there's things at least that are interesting while it's busy doing, like, its 3-hour-long fight, you know, but it's literally just, there they are.
Yeah, and like I think like a good example of this I think would be like the fundamental understanding or like misunderstanding of some of these characters. Like a good one is Tony. For some reason, like I said, they take Tony's arc again, except they don't make it really about his. So he had like a relative ego in Iron Man 1, but more of like in a charming way. Iron Man 2 happens, and then it's like, okay, that's pretty obnoxious, but I can still... Avengers 1 happens, he has even more of an ego. He's not getting better, he's getting worse.
Well, right, well, and it reminds me of... like, honestly, what that reminds me of is the 2009 Star Trek movie, where it was like whoever was writing that fucking movie, I don't remember who they are. I don't like them, whoever they are. But whoever was writing that movie, like, probably only ever heard of Star Trek vaguely once before, and, like, knew, again, the absolute bare minimum about the characters. So, like, James T. Kirk, he's brash, he's a womanizer, he's an asshole, and he has to learn responsibility, and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, they make him just, like, this giant fucking piece of shit who doesn't follow any orders and who just does everything wrong but somehow makes it, you know, right at the end, which is not what his character is. You know, same with Spock. What is Spock? He's just, also people, like, he's a stoic, right? So how are we going to write him? Well, we're going to write him basically like he has autism, because we don't know how to write stoicism in our characters. You know, Bones is not just, like, kind of grumpy. He's just, like, a complete, like, he's like an alcoholic divorcee who, like, it's just taking the most basic one-dimensional surface-level elements and then just, like, supercharging the fuck out of it and being like, that's the character, right? You know, so, like, Iron Man doesn't just have a bit of an ego and, like, a bit of a devil-may-care attitude. No, he is a giant cockhead. You know, like... Captain America is old and a stickler and no fun.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's fucking... ugh.
And I think the best example of, like, misunderstanding a character is Loki. I've been I've been waiting to talk about this, but like I've mentioned before in Thor 1, Loki seemed like he had more interesting and complex character types when going about him. He had a very simple factor of, yeah, he's jealous, but he had reasons and sympathetic and motivations. And generally, he was a very serious villain too. Not only was he, number one, intimidating, two, he actually felt like he had some motives behind him. He didn't seem like he was treated like a joke. And he seemed...
Right.
And he very much seemed like a character with more than one dimension. And that's really good for a Marvel villain. That's why so many people got connected. Boom! Avengers 1 happens. Avengers 1 takes everything that Loki essentially was from the first movie and throws it out. I'm sorry to say this, but Thor 1, when he lets go and released, I think that that's kind of the end of his arc. Unless it's him kind of reclaiming what he once thought of his brother and stuff, there's no real way to make his character. And the way that they go around this, or try to go around this at least, is he's proving himself to Purple Man. And then they're like, yeah, even though it completely forgets the fact that the reason that Loki was trying to prove himself to his brother, and more so like in a way to his father, was because he was directly related to those people, and he like literally had his whole life with them. He doesn't even know Thanos. Thanos just comes out of nowhere and he's like, you want to make Army Man? And he was like, sure. And then there's the fact that when Hulk like gets a hand of him, he's like completely treated as a joke. A lot of these characters don't treat him seriously because it's like, oh, quip every 3 seconds, and it completely destroys like Loki.
Well, right. Well, it's also, again, it's like when he lets go and like goes, like falls into the void. You're like, okay, so he kind of like regrets his actions and blah blah blah. And then like the next movie, he comes back and he's like, well, I'm gonna take over Earth now. And I was like,
yeah.
Why? Like, if they want it to be like, honestly, why wouldn't they just have it be like, well, Thanos is making me do this, or he's going to kill me, you know, or something?
Yeah, that would make way more sense.
Instead of just like, hi, I'm the dick again. And again, it just comes back to like, these characters are just constantly stagnant. Whenever you think that they're going to have an arc, whenever you think that something's going to be different and change, it doesn't. The next movie, it goes back to normal.
Yeah, I don't
like, this is the third time, and it's going to be the fourth when Iron Man 3 comes out, and probably the fifth in Captain America Civil War. But this is like the third time that Iron Man's arc has reset.
You know, just keep on resetting for the... He'll reset every time he's on screen. That's the new rule. Every time he even appears in the scene, he's going through the same arc.
Right. He's always just having to relearn to be responsible and not an asshole. Forever. Until he fucking dies. And it's just, like, that's what's really irritating. Because there's no forward momentum. I mean, shit, even with Thanos, like, this decade of buildup, he has, like, one stone when Infinity War starts. Like, he'd been sitting, like, chilling in the fucking whatever dimension for just forever until, like, well, today sounds like a good day to go after the stones, I think.
And then there's, like, you want to talk about the best part of this film?
What?
The camera and the color palette.
Oh, right. Dude, don't you just love the, like, fucking Crayola Fun Blast colors on this fucking movie?
It's not even that color's bad. It's just that there's so much of it. Like, in the whole fight scene, we're supposed to take place in New York City, but everything looks yeller. Everything.
Well, like, so, I mean, like, this is also why I tend to like color palettes that are more muted, is because, like, something that I was learning when I was, like, taking a lot of art classes and shit was, like, you never just want to have something just be fucking red. Like, if you're coloring something, don't just have it be that one particular kind of color, right? Don't just dump out plain red onto your shit and color it that way, because it's going to look like fucking clown colors and it's going to look fucking stupid. You want different shades and different, you know, hues and vibrancies of those colors. You want to mix those colors in with other ones to give it some kind of depth or richness to it. And that's not what's happening in Avengers. And it's like Iron Man is fucking clown car red and fucking banana yellow. You know, Captain America is fucking, you know, deep sea blue, and then he's also got some clown car red on him. Like, there's no richness to or anything to these colors. It's just gaudy and fake and cheap looking.
Okay, to be fair, to a quick correction is that it's not necessarily all yellow, but a lot of like certain areas in this fight scene are like pretty yellow based. Like some of the buildings in particular look like near all yellow sometimes, or like have that same kind of color. So a quick correction there, but it's still like this doesn't take away from the fact that everything, all the colors in like the scene stand out so much that it's hard for it to even look like a real movie, considering it looks like a TV movie.
Well, yeah, yes. That's also something that he carried over to Justice League, is that this looks like a made-for-TV movie. But it's just like, you can have some vibrancy, sure, but it's like, again, it literally feels like they took like the most cartoonish fucking red paint that they could ever find and just dumped Iron Man in it. You know?
Look how
like,
blue Captain America is.
Right, exactly. It's weird, and it's not that it's vibrant. It's like I have a hard time figuring out how to say it, but it's just flat, you know. Like you can tell, like it's the difference when like you see somebody who knows what they're doing, and somebody who doesn't. Because when there's somebody who doesn't, it's just, wow, that's blue. They took the singular blue whatever that they were using to color this and just colored that blue. That sure is a flat, crappy looking blue, right? And then the difference between that and somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of color palette, they're mixing in those other shades and other gradients and colors into it to give it some kind of richness, right? To make it not look cheap and shitty.
Does Banner look yellow? Never mind. Sorry, continue.
Because it's oversaturation. Also, that's the secret I'm always angry line is garbage. That's a terrible line. Whoever wrote that, well, Josh wrote that. So Josh should feel bad for that line. That's terrible.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. It doesn't even make sense in the logic of the movie because he spends the entire movie being like pissing his pants scared of the Hulk, which is another thing that's like really fucking stupid. Like, and again, it's this like the most basic surface level like retard fucking interpretation of these characters, because it's not just that Bruce Banner is trying very hard to keep himself from becoming the Hulk. He's like a fucking pussy and is scared out of his mind and like neurotic and weird and shitty about becoming the Hulk. Like, these aren't fucking characters.
Oh, by the way, just a quick mention when we're talking about the color palette also is that when they're in the dark they actually look much better, because with the black kind of contrasting off of like the blue and the red, it looks so much better versus when you're out in like that final fight, everything looks like a mess because everything's bright as hell.
Right. Exactly, because it's not lit well. It's just, there they are in just smack in broad daylight. And again, it's just flat lighting. Which, again, is part of why it looks like it's made for TV.
Quick question, were there even any shadows in the final fight?
I don't know. Probably not. They're too busy animating the big worm thing.
But yeah, dude, the worm was my...
It's also like... Again, it's also just like, it's the start of like all the terrible tropes that like carried over into like Suicide Squad and shit, of just like big laser beam in the sky and then a bunch of like faceless random like robot things.
Yeah, robot monsters that you don't... which we get for nearly all the Avengers. For all the Avengers movies. Like, the Avengers one has the whatever, who cares, alien race that... Speaking of which, this alien race isn't even explored. Like, we don't even have a culture. They're just mindless monsters that we fight. And then the second thing...
They make no sense.
Yeah, they make no sense. And then Age of Ultron is just robots. And then Infinity War and Endgame is just, yet again, another alien race that nobody likes that kind of act more dog-like. And that's it. Like, they don't even fight people.
Right, well, even with Infinity War, like, at the very least, they act like rabid wild animals. Like, that is a trait that they possess. What trait do the enemies in fucking Avengers 1 have? Nothing. Not even the bare minimum of, like, they act like wild animals.
They shoot?
Yeah, they shoot things. Sure. Like, it's not, and again, and you're right, they're not explained. Again, like, what if Loki's being forced to do this or he'll die? What if this is an alien race that Thanos, like, captured in order to, like, use for his own devices or something, and you know, shit like that. Like, why are they here? Where did they come from? Blah, blah, blah. But just, no, fuck that. They shoot.
They shoot, and they fly sometimes. Yay.
Yeah. There's a big worm one.
Yeah, my favorite kind of design is just a worm with battle armor. Which, speaking of which, what is that supposed to do?
I don't know.
Like, logically, what does it do? Like, I get it rams into buildings, but what if, like, the alien that they're attacking don't really have any buildings to, like, ram into? That's only because it's, like, New York, but what if they were, like, Kansas? Like, how would it run into the buildings without hitting the ground?
Maybe it's got laser beams that it just didn't use or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna check now. I gotta know for sure.
What the fuck is this thing and what does it do? And again, and like, what's weird to me is, like, again, like, with Thanos just being at the end and him, like, just very loosely implied to be sending Loki and these aliens to fight Earth, it's also, like, first of all, why didn't Thanos just take the Tesseract from Loki? Like, he obviously had some kind of contact with Loki, right? I mean, he had to. Why wouldn't he just have taken the Tesseract from Loki? Why does he let him keep it and let it get retaken by the Avengers if Loki is working for Thanos? Why is he sending this, like, random, faceless, like, garbage tier army to go fight the Avengers? And why is he sending Loki to do this job for him? It's like we're like, again, like, we're supposed to, like, we've been building up for like a decade, like, oh, dude, Thanos gonna fucking, oh my god, he's gonna destroy everything. But, like, we never see him do anything. He just sits there and he's like, aha, I am evil.
He is evil indeed, that's true.
Yeah, he's like, I'm a bad guy and I have a ball sack on my chin. Ah.
Yeah, funny enough, this is one credit in DC's favor. In both Justice League and in Justice League War, along with all the other animated stuff as well, it seems that Darkseid, as soon as, like, his battalion fails, he goes straight after them, essentially. He, like, brings Apocalypse as fast as he can to Earth, or tries to, you know, do an invasion. The one that didn't kind of do that was Young Justice, but that was because he had a man on the inside, and Vandal Savage and, you know, Darkseid were having this match-off between wits and stuff. It was really interesting. One of the weirder things about Young Justice, but yeah.
But, well, like, again, even in the goddamn Snyder Cut trailers, we're constantly seeing footage of Darkseid as, like, an adolescent, like, teenage Darkseid, trying to take over Earth in, like, ancient human past, and we're seeing, like, the entire planet having to try and kill Darkseid. Like, he's tried to kill, like, he's tried to take over the planet before. He's not just sitting there, like, waiting and then, like, oh, today seems like a good day. But like again, it's like Thanos just doesn't do anything.
He's got to be a purple Homer Simpson.
Right. Right. It was only in Infinity War I was like, damn, he's actually a pretty good villain. But like, there was no reason where you're like, oh, he's gonna like this is an actual threat. You just go, I know that guy. He's from comic book that I remember like reading. You know.
By the way, Thanos came like a month to a few years after, either a few months or a few years after Darkseid. Just to let you know.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, right. That's kind of the thing, and that's like what's kind of irritating when like I'm like seeing people kind of like react to the new Justice League shit. They're like, this guy looks like Thanos. And it's like Thanos was the ripoff. Thanos was like the shitty Darkseid ripoff that nobody gave a fuck about until the MCU.
Yeah, because in the comics he's known for falling in love with death.
Right. He's right. In the comics he just got cut by death. He wasn't threatening at all. He was more just like sad.
He's a big villain now, I swear. Get all the purple stones.
And he's gotta get the space rocks.
We had a lot to say about this film, more than I realized.
Well, yeah. No, what's weird is that it's a lot to say about the film, but not really. It's about like the larger implications that this has on the entire storyline going forward than it is about the movie itself. Because the movie itself is boring as fuck. It's just, again, it's clip, punch, the end. We have a Hulk, eat shawarma. Like, there's nothing to dissect or talk about there. But what's interesting is like how it was like the early signs of all the bullshit that would make me fucking stop watching Marvel movies after a while.
Yeah. Just wait until we get to Ant-Man and Age of Ultron.
Oh, dude. My favorite.
Yeah, dude, Thor the Dark World's gonna be great.
The only thing I've ever heard about Thor Dark World that was good was that the guy who played the evil elf said that he liked working on Dark World more than being on Doctor Who.
Oh, I think that was Matt Smith, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the Doctors where he was like, yeah, it wasn't as shitty as working on Doctor Who. Everyone's dicks making that show. And it was like, well, there you go. The guys who made Thor Dark World aren't as big of assholes as BBC. Congratulations.
Oof, that's probably not a very high standard, though.
Right? Oh. Phase 2 is going to be a fucking slog. I get that feeling right now.
Yeah, because like everything that we've said so far about Phase 1 is 10 times worse than Phase 2. All except for like maybe Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy. But that's it.
Right. Those are the only ones that I remember exist, because I keep like going like, oh right, they made Iron Man 3. Oh, that's right, there was a Thor 2. Oh yeah, Ant-Man was in there somewhere. Like, fuck. Fuck.
Yeah.
So what would you rate Avengers?
Good. We get to ratings because I'm really curious about yours, but mine is pretty simple. It's a 4.5.
Mine is a 5 out of 10.
5. Yours is just 1.5 higher than mine.
Yep. It's just, again, it's aggressively mediocre. That's what it is.
Yeah, but I lowered it just a bit because I don't think it's mediocre. I think it's a little bit in bad territory. Due to all the issues that we found about like the characters, the dialogue, and all that.
Mm. Yeah, I can see that. For me, well, again, it's like the worst part of it is how just it is. Like, and again, like this is why like I've said this I don't know how many times, but it's like, I mean, shit, it would have been better if this movie wasn't like a dumpster fire. Because, like, even if it's bad, like, if a movie is terrible, if it makes me, like, upset or something, like, it's or make me laugh, like then it's gotten an emotional reaction out of me, right? And if it's great, you know, then like I get a different kind of emotional reaction out of it. But like when something is just there, it just exists, and there's nothing interesting or special about it. It's like it's just white noise. Like I might as well just be staring at a wall because I'm getting the same emotional reaction out of it.
Yeah. I like it. It's it's such a shame because this was like the starting point for the Avengers, and yet this movie is so unbelievably mediocre, if not a little bit in bad territory, where there's just nothing going on, that it honestly makes the like. I think it really just comes down to the fact why people defend it is really just because it has all the characters on screen. You know, because people watch Thor 1, Captain America and Iron Man, they're like, oh, can't wait for them to all get together, and then they got together, and then it's like, wow, they did it. And
well, right, and it's like as a finale to this like experiment, sure, that's fine. But like as a movie on its own, like it sucks. And it's not just that like and that's not inherently the fault of it being a crossover movie, because again, like Infinity War was way fucking better. And that was a crossover movie that was almost, I would say, the same amount of shallow, but like it at least had something fucking going on that was interesting. But it's just like, fuck. Like, I hadn't seen a Marvel movie in years outside of Thor Ragnarok, and I watched Infinity War and still got something out of it. Like, imagine if somebody just walked into Avengers 1 and just like, okay, this is what it is. And then they just watched it. They'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. If this were to go on, like, without... Like, let's say there wasn't Iron Man 1, Captain America, or Thor that existed. There's no way it would survive.
Well, right. And it's like the thing that's sad is that this is considered like this big watershed moment. Like it's always talked about in this like weird way where it's just like, oh my god, like then the Avengers happened, and it was like, yeah. And then I forgot about it about exactly an hour and 30 minutes after I watched it. And again, like the way people talk about this movie, the way they defend it, and the way they like get mad about it, and like it's fucking weird. It's weird. It's not just, it was a good movie. It's like people talk about like this. The moment when they're all together on screen made me fucking cry, and I was like, really?
Yep, it made me in tears. When they sat down and ate shawarma, it gave me actual tears. Tears.
Right, it's just like, okay. It's baffling to me. And again, and like maybe I'm just fucking pretentious. Maybe that's what it is, right? But like, I don't feel like it's bad to expect them to like do something interesting. Like to me, it's like it's not like I don't feel like it's too much for me to expect it to try. You know, even if you fuck up, like try. You know?
Nope, I'm just waiting. I don't want to try. Nope.
Right? No, I'm just. They make jokes, and like again, it's like that's why I came around on the Zack Snyder movies, because like even if there are parts that fuck up or like things that don't work, like you know that he's trying, even if it's like bullshit and ham-fisted, and like even if like the Martha theme doesn't fucking work, it's like he's trying to do something here, you know. It gets some kind of emotional reaction out of me. There's something going on. But like with Avengers, it's just this fucking gray sludge that just gets shat out in front of you, and then it's like, pay us money, please. And it works. That's the weird thing.
Yeah. It fooled everybody. it did so well at it too. It's what hurts. And
Right, exactly. And it's like people not only liked it, they fucking ate that shit up. And we're like, yeah, this is amazing. And they're fucking, what? What? It's fucking weird to me. Like it's like the McDonald's of movie franchises, and people still to this day will fucking argue with me that it's art, that it's something bigger and like it's this fucking thing that it's not. And I'm like, sure, if you like it, that's fine. But like, just but like understand that it is like a Big Mac. You know?
yeah, it's a Big Mac this whole time. It's just like
Right.
Tony and the donut hole. It's just one big donut.
Right, and it's just like, I'm like, you know what, that's fine, I guess. Like, there are times when I want to eat just a Big Mac, you know, but don't come over here and, like, put it on a silver platter and tell me that now it's fancy.
It's a
Because,
fancy
well, yeah.
Big Mac.
Yeah, you had to eat 3 other hamburgers in order to eat this Big Mac. That means it's special. Like, fuck.
I like how we were both like fundamentally exhausted with Avengers 1. And I thought Avengers 1 was honestly going to be the best. Either Avengers 1 or Iron Man 1, but it seems like Iron Man 1 seems to be the best.
Right. Well, right. Well, it's like I feel okay in giving Iron Man 1 the credit of starting the MCU. And I feel like that movie was, one, a legitimately enjoyable movie. And does have some kind of significance with starting off all of this shit. But like Avengers is like all of the things that I dislike about Marvel just kind of crammed into one movie.
Yeah, and I was honestly hoping it would be something like different or special, but it seems like it's weird going through Phase 1 because it's all the things that we don't necessarily expect for like the oncoming things, and that's what made Phase 1 kind of enjoyable at first, even if most of them are mediocre movies. When we got to Avengers and then we just saw all the traits that we've seen from the MCU in like all the worst, ways, but here it's just like thrown on with a different color paint on it. And then
Right.
and then suddenly it's like somewhat better, but it's really not.
Right. Well, and it's like, I think this movie is like the biggest thing that is killing this movie for us right now is retrospect and time passing. Right? Because like when the Avengers first came out, I didn't love it, but I was like, oh, that was interesting. I haven't seen anything like that before. Like it was a novelty, right? Having all of these guys from different movies on the screen at the same time. You're like, oh, that's neat. That's interesting. But then, as, now that we're, how many fucking movies into this shit? Like the one thing that it, like at least like 20 something movies, like 27 fucking movies or some shit. But it's like the novelty is gone. Like, and I don't think you can recapture watching that novelty now that we're post Endgame. And it's like, what does this movie have now besides that? Nothing.
Nothing. It has nothing. And that's like the fundamental thing that I keep coming back to and circling around to is that this film has nothing. Like other than just having characters on screen, it has nothing. There is nothing here that this film does that is superior to all the previous movies. And that's something even like comparing it either to the other Marvel movies, maybe not to Phase 2 because Phase 2 sucks, lol. But comparing it, yeah, lol. But compared to like Phase 1, the other movies, at least the other ones were, I feel like there was something worth defending there, at least. Like there was some sort of prefaces and style and characters, even if they remain stagnant. But in Avengers 1, there's just none of that. There's no, like, is there a character development in this movie?
No.
it's we have to work together. That's what we learn at the end of this movie.
We're all in this together. You okay?
No, my body was violently rejecting the High School Musical.
I like how there's a violent reject to it. It's not just a normal reaction. It's just
Yeah. Is Avengers 1 the High School Musical of superhero movies?
It has the same color palette, so maybe.
Yeah, it has the same level of production value.
Yep, it has the same lighting. It has like a lot of characters that come together on screen on it. There's like
Has the same message.
Yeah.
Same amount of depth to it.
Oh my god, we made a secret connection all because of one dumb joke.
Yeah, same amount of pointless scenes that don't further the plot at all, or you're just kind of like, okay, sure, like, get on with it. Yeah, it really is. That should be the title. The Avengers is the High School Musical of superhero movies.
That is great. I am putting that on the title. I gotta remind myself. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, that's phase 1. Stay tuned for episode 498 of David Casey Shit on Marvel, where we talk about phase 2.
So, so that was Avengers 1. We didn't like it, but if we had to give phase 1 a rating, what would it be?
A 7 overall. Phase 1 is a 7 out of 10.
Okay, and I would, I'd give it like a 6.5.
Well, yeah, it's like the movies that I liked, I do like, you know, and like they're not. It's nothing where I'm like, oh my god, movie was fucking amazing, but it was like, well, it's good, yeah, sure, right? And that's what I feel like a 7 is, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I feel like, you know, as much as like Iron Man 2 sucked, or like the Avengers was fucking bleh, like the movies that I did enjoy, like I don't think that those movies being worse detracts from the enjoyment that I did have. So.
Avengers is the High School Musical of movies. Yep. That's what we're.
That'll get that. Yeah, that'll get the dislikes going.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Phase 1 is okay.
Yep. It had a mediocre ending, but hey, we made it. We did it. Cool.
Yeah, get it. Great.
Break
All right.
time.
Break time.
Okay, so you want to talk about which one are you going to talk about in the next recording? The Mulan? I mean, not Mulan. Lion King or the Evil Dead series?
Might as well get Lion King over with because I have like 3 pages of notes for that.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a lot. Like it's like we're already bitching about Disney and shit, so I might as well just beat the shit out of Lion King. That dead horse needs to just get another whacking. Oh.
Nice. And then I can then shit on Mulan.
Right. Oh man, don't you just love these new fucking Disney remakes?
Yeah, they're great. I love how they take the original source material and make it worse and not improve upon it on any way. Yeah.
Right, and fundamentally misunderstand all of the things that made the original movie work.
Yeah. That.
Yeah, really cool.